We are live on a Thursday afternoon, ready to talk movies or whatever else you guys want to talk about. Today I'm joined by Chris from Film Stock. Chris, how you doing?
I'm doing fantastic. Thank you so much for having me on. Excited to be here, answering the questions, talking movies, and potentially more.
Yeah, you never know, especially when you say ask me anything. Some people take that as a personal challenge. Like, what can I come up with? Like, what has no one asked them? What's going to make things pretty wild and crazy in this particular conversation? So, who knows what we are about to get? But one of the big reasons I wanted to have you on is because a week from today, a week from now, we're going to be at Megacon. Both of us are going to be there all 4 days. We've got a bunch of panels lined up, and hopefully we are going to meet a ton of people. So I thought, why not start talking movies a week early on a live stream today? So what are you excited about with Megacon?
I'm excited because for me, it's my first time ever being on a panel. I've seen some of your Instagram posts recently, like reminiscing on, panels of past, if you will, and I've never done something like that in front of like a live audience. So it's very exciting for me, like a cool new step for myself. But also I'm just excited to be there with people, in a live audience, feeling the energy. When we do a live stream, there's a number in the corner. There's this many people in the stream or whatever. But when you're there and you see people in front of you, I feel like it's a whole new level, a whole new energy. That's what I'm the most excited for about it all.
Yeah, yeah, it's an adventure, and you discover different skill sets as to whether like you feed off the room and people there, and like if you try and tell a joke to a camera. Like it's kind of awkward, but when you're in a room and you tell a joke and people actually kind of laugh at it, and then you like build on that energy, and then like we're doing a collab over technology. Whenever the stream first started, you talked, and there's a small gap between when your words hit me. There's always that like technology delay and stuff, but when you're in person, you're actually talking to a person that's right there. So it's a lot of fun. So we'll keep talking about all of that as this stream goes along. First question, this actually is convenient one to come up. So that's, Sean, will you review Donkey? So right before we started, I was telling Chris, the reason we started a couple minutes late is because I started talking about how tonight I'm going to go see the movie Flight, which is a new Bollywood film. Donkey came out the same day as a movie called Solar. They're from two different studios in India. I saw Solar, and so I missed out on seeing Donkey. I actually had tickets for both, and I picked to go see the other one. There's too many movies coming out that like watching a movie and reviewing for a month before is unlikely to happen. But so Chris, even that thing we were talking about, there's someone touching on that exact thing. But there was one topic I asked you to prep for this. Jordan Sweet had the question related to it. Hey Sean, did you see the Roadhouse trailer? Just dropped, looks pretty good. Yes, I watched the trailer for this one, and I asked, you're not that way, asked Chris to watch it before we got started. So, Chris, point of reference, have you seen the original Roadhouse?
I have not, and I know that probably upsets you and many people in the chat, but it is a movie that my dad loves, and he's like, oh, I'm excited for that new Roadhouse movie. And at Thanksgiving, my uncle was there. He's like, yeah, new Roadhouse comes out next year. And I was like, I'm going to have to sit down and watch this original then. I'm familiar with certain scenes. I won't say anything. I'm sure a lot of you guys have seen it. But I'm familiar with like iconic moments and over-the-top, actions that take place. You might know what I'm referring to. But I haven't seen the original.
Yeah, so the I mean, it's such an 80s product. Like, it is, even in the way they're adapting it, you can tell that they feel the need to make quite a few adjustments because it's such a product of its time. And that they were bringing it back, I was like, how's that going to work? Why are we bringing back, like, Roadhouse of all things? How does that work? And then it makes sense in line with what I've been saying about Amazon Prime. Amazon Prime is very much going for the dad crowd. Like, what are their big hit shows? Jack Reacher, Terminal List. Like, they're going for kind of these throwback action thrillers that are the stuff that I grew up watching in the 90s and shaped me. And now here we are all these years later, and I'm a dad, and I absolutely love all that stuff. And so the streaming service that delivers to that particular audience does a remake of Roadhouse that has a very different flavor to it. You go, okay, that makes a lot of sense. All right, so as the person that is brand new to legendary franchise Roadhouse. What did you think about the trailer?
I'm intrigued. It looked very Stallone. I was talking earlier, I was like, I watched a bunch of Stallone movies last March, and it seemed like over the top cheesy, but I bought it. Now, there were a few things where I was like, like I thought some of the punches and slaps being thrown looked like weirdly CG, and maybe that's me reading too deep into it, just a trailer. But then Conor McGregor showed up, and I was like, okay, I know what we're getting into here. This is going to be just madness, cheesiness, and I kind of ate it up. Like, it seems like something where you can, and I hate to say like turn your brain off, but that's the kind of thing it's going to be. You watch it, maybe get together with some buddies and just laugh hysterically at the insane antics that go down. So I'm intrigued. I will watch it, but I'm almost more excited to go watch the original Swayze version now for a point of reference.
Yeah, it's so I watched the trailer, and I just thought it looked like a lot of fun. Like they know that they're making a movie that's kind of silly, and they're embracing that. And like at this, especially the slap fight at the beginning, it looked sped up. That like they're doing something to make him come off much more intense than 40-something-year-old Jake Gyllenhaal could actually pull off. But I don't particularly care. That doesn't bother me too much. It was fun. It delivered entertainment, and it's like the original one. The Dalton character, his whole thing is that he's the best bouncer in the world. And so he's like, they recruit him to be because he's the best bouncer. And so it has its own weird lore. And so making the guy a MMA fighter, that in and of itself is a pretty big change. And it has the energy in a sense, but it's a very different version of it.
Is it like he's a disgraced MMA fighter? Like, from what I interpret, I feel like he's going to get kicked out of the UFC or whatever. And then he's going to be like, oh, I got to take on this life of bouncing. I don't know. But I'm worried for one reason, because I think Doug Liman's a great director, but his last two projects have missed the mark for me. Locked Down and Chaos Walking were two of my least favorite movies of the year that came out. So he's made some great action flicks like The Bourne Identity.
Which one was Locked Down?
It was a Max exclusive, HBO Max. It was Anne Hathaway and I'm gonna mispronounce his name, but Chiwetel Ejiofor.
Okay.
Plays Mordo.
Was it? Oh, okay. So it's one of those. Well, it's one of those lockdown movies.
It was. Okay, it was a pandemic movie.
Gotcha. Okay.
Yeah.
I don't think I realized that was him, but that in and of itself kind of tells you how much his fame has kind of dwindled a little bit. Like you look at his films, and he's got some. Like when he hits, and then at the same time, like you said, there's some of the other ones where you go, ooh.
Yeah.
Ooh, like in Chaos Walking, they sat on it for like 3 or 4 years because they're like, okay, we have a movie that has Rey from Star Wars and Spider-Man, and it's unwatchable.
I wanted to walk out of the theater. Yeah, it was bad.
Unfortunate. All right, moving right along. Lucas asks, do you think Harry and Hermione should have ended up together? I am by no means a Harry Potter fan that would be locked in with strong passionate opinions on which romantic paths should they have gone down. I am aware of who ends up with who. The traditional path is that your leading man ends up with your leading girl. Obviously, they had chemistry. They got along. If they had gone down that path, it would have been more traditional. And at the same time, that also kind of makes it less interesting. There's more of a tension with Ron, so maybe that's a little bit interesting in its own way. But they seem, especially in the movies, seemed like an odd pairing by the time you kind of get to the end of it. But so I thought in the last two movies, Ron just looks sickly, like he looks like he's dying,
and he was super irritating, so it didn't help.
Yeah. So it's like, why would anyone want to be with this guy right now?
No, yeah, the moment for me, I think it's in Hollows Part 1 when they're like, when Harry and Hermione are like dancing together with that song, which, by the way, I don't know if you're on like the Harry Potter side of TikTok, but that song was just viral on social media for like a year. I'm
on zero sides of TikTok.
Okay.
I post on TikTok. I do not understand TikTok. Despite my attempts to try and look youthful, I am actually middle-aged and old.
Okay, yeah. No, so that a lot of people wish that they went that route. I'm kind of indifferent. Like I didn't really watch Harry Potter to be like, oh, I wonder who's going to end up with who romantically. I'm fine with how it ended, with who ended up with who. So sure, they could have gone that route. I wouldn't have been mad, but it was based on the book, so it was kind of already set in stone.
Yeah, and it's also not a romance. So it's like, even on some levels, that's not really even the focus in a lot of ways. So I don't know. I just never had a strong opinion about it. I did think it was a bit odd that Ron ended up with anybody.
No, that's fair. Yeah.
Real quick one on here. Well, that's why Chris is a goats for a reason, and you're on fire. You are on fire.
Help me.
To that exact point, that is also why you'll be joining me next week at Megacon. In case you're joining in a little bit late, we'll be at Megacon a week from now, all 4 days, leading multiple panels. Should be an amazing good time. Here's a fun one where we might have some differences of opinion. Who is your favorite director?
This is always tough for me. I always land on like 3, but right now I'd say all time it's Steven Spielberg. He's got the variety. He's proven it decade after decade. Obviously, Raiders and E.T. are the sort of adventure films. You've got Jaws, Saving Private Ryan, I think is like the great war film. I even love the new West Side Story. So he's got such variety in his filmography, and he's done it for my entire life and then some. So I'd say Spielberg's probably my favorite of all time.
I was hoping to have more variety in here. Spielberg is also my favorite. Thought because of my extreme age difference that maybe we would latch on to different things. But to that exact point, Spielberg has been making movies for everyone for a very long time. And he continues to make great movies. And he can do blockbusters. He can do drama and kind of everything in the middle. So I think he's a pretty safe pick. Of 21st century directors, who are you going for your top guy?
It's got to be, I feel like we might have the same answer here as well. I got to go Nolan. And recently, he's really made the surge for maybe my all-time favorite because of how much I love Oppenheimer. I've become just obsessed with that movie. I've seen it 3 times. I even got the screenplay book and read through that. Woo! I listen to the score all the time, like when I edit and do my work. It helps calm me. So yeah, I'd say Nolan, the Dark Knight trilogy, Interstellar, Inception, Tenet getting the re-release. I don't know if we're going to talk about that, but I might try and go see it in IMAX. So I'd say Nolan.
Yeah, I got to go Nolan. And I mean, you're talking about, in the case of both Spielberg and Nolan, you're talking about directors that can take risks but still be mainstream. They can do dramas that are broad appeal. And they've had success in multiple genres. And all talent is drawn to them, and they consistently deliver. So,
yeah.
Pretty safe pick.
Hate to be basic, but it's the way it is.
All right. Friend of the channel, Galaxy Geeks asks, when growing a channel on YouTube, do you look at your audience demographics when creating content? So I study my analytics quite a bit. I'm always going in YouTube Studio and trying to pay attention to some of that information. Specifically, audience demographics, not a ton, in the sense that if I see that it's a bunch of dudes, that doesn't change what movie I want to cover. I'm going to cover it based off where I see the interest, reading the comments, looking at what people have responded to in the past. And so I wouldn't really approach it from that perspective. There's some kind of behind the scenes experiments that I do that are based off demographics. Like there's some technology out there that will if you upload a video, it clones your voice and it will deep fake your mouth to change the words and translate it into a different language. So I know I have it's like 10% of my audience is in India. So I've done some experiments where I've done shorts where I've uploaded a video where it deep fakes my mouth into Hindi. And that was based off studying demographics and looking. So it's like an interesting experiment for some potential things I might do in the future. But I don't look at it from that perspective. I kind of study it more so from audience behavior, more so than, all right, we've got a bunch of people in Florida. What do people in Florida like? Or I've got a lot of dudes. What do dudes like? Well, different people like different things. And so what they're actually clicking on, click-through rate, audience retention, the comments, the chatter, that's what I look at more from that perspective. What about you?
No, yeah. I agree. I don't really look into demographics in terms of like age, gender, all that stuff. I just Honestly, for me, I look at the analytics, the numbers of everything, those statistics you were naming out, but also just like at the basic level, I just scroll through my YouTube and I see like what do people seem to like and not like, and I kind of keep a running tab of that in my notes. Oh, in this video, I tried this with the intro. Did that work or not? Seemingly. So I take notes like that and almost make my own analytics sort of. That's how I've always done it. But you know, you can find success anyway. I think it's worth looking at the demographics, obviously, but it's not something I obsess over by any means.
Yeah, there's they get like it's as creepy as you think. They give you an enormous amount of information, so being aware of it, looking at it is good, but you don't want to go the wrong direction with all that. John Stone with the super chat, thank you so much. Trying to find the drive, trying to drive into my YouTube career. What was y'all's time management strategy when you were still working, and what about now full time? Well, so like the job I had when I was doing YouTube was delivering paint. And so it was like physical labor, but I was on my own schedule. And so it had the advantage of I could pause to write a quick note, respond to a comment at work before I got my next delivery location. But there really wasn't balance in life. It was, and to the extent it's really not balanced now, it was, I got home from day job and I started filming a video and then editing a video. And then I'd have like couple hours with my family, and then I'd watch whatever new movies I needed to watch, and I'd post a thumbnail. Like it was like working all the time to kind of grow something. And like I had strong motivation. It was a big, gigantic surge. There's a reason that not a lot of people take off, because it is so demanding of time. It is so demanding of you. And it's hard, and you might fail. If this isn't the first project I had. I poured a ton of my time into blogging in the past or web pages, and they went nowhere. And then eventually something took off. As for now, I just try and think more of, I don't have like a specific schedule that I run, because every day's kind of different. Like even today, we were going to do the stream at night, and then we both realized we were going to the movies. And so then, okay, let's do it earlier in the day. And then some days I have phone calls. So it's more of just trying to make sure that I'm getting time for all the pieces that need to be there. But I don't really have besides knowing what you value. Like I have to spend time with my wife and kids. So being aware, have I done that this week? And at times when I start getting stressed by the constant demands and interaction from people, I'll say like, I need to start taking Sundays off, or I'm off social media for 2 days, or I'm deleting things off my phone. It's more that stuff and scheduling when I'm going to do the draining activities, but I don't have a full strategy. Do you have a...
So for me, it's interesting in terms of time management specifically. It's something that I struggle with. I think we all do it in some way, shape, or form. Like I, on paper, would love to say today I'm filming X amount of shorts, X amount of long form videos for the next week. And it's difficult sometimes. You know, you can hit those almost like a writer's block, ideas block for videos, especially like in the month of January even. And in certain months, the content makes itself. When it's summer movie season, you got infinite ideas, it seems like. There are some months where things are slower. So for me, trying to find the balance, I think is and never going to stop. Like I think it's something that we'll constantly have to adapt to. For me, it's a lot different too, because I mean, I started my channel when I was in college, so I had classwork to deal with, and then I had to just kind of adapt. So one thing is, I don't think content creation is like set in stone. These are the hours you're working. It's ever changing. There are some days where, the big game is going to have a bunch of trailers drop on this Sunday night, and so I'm going to cover those. Or this embargo.
Like I'm going to a wedding the weekend. Zach Pope, his wedding is the weekend of the Super Bowl, and I even scheduled my return flight to come back at 5 a.m. on Sunday, rather than kind of wait because it's the Super Bowl, and I just I want to be there for those trailers. So you have things like that, but stage of life makes like I couldn't have done what I did if my kids were their current age when I launched my channel, because they're just more demanding in the sense that like when they were 4 months old or like very young, they went to bed much earlier. They couldn't have conversation. Like it was just like such a very different version of parenting, to where now they're like, you do things with them. They have places they need to be. I couldn't have done that. Like even though my channel was able to grow, even specifically because of the age my kids were at that exact time. And even now versus 2 years ago, it's harder as they get older. Like starting this year, my kids are at 3 different schools. And so we're just driving kids around all day long. And then my son's in middle school, so there's more activities. My daughter wants to be in all the clubs. So like Sunday or this weekend, she had a robotics competition. It's tough.
Yeah. Time management is always difficult.
And every phase of life has new challenges, new opportunities, new things that make it easier. Network guys, 2 of my favorites. Hashtag the craving. Don't know what that means. Have you seen Dancing with the Stars, Sean? I've seen some. Yeah, like when there's someone interesting on there, I'm interested in. I'll check it out. I don't watch the show in and of itself, as in like every season I'm watching it. It's like if there's a specific personality, they're like, let me check this out. My wife is into the dancing shows more than I am, so kind of depends on seasonally. Sometimes my wife and daughter will be into something like that. Are you a big Dancing with the Stars fan?
Wasn't until last year when my lady friend Cam sort of put me onto it. I started watching it and really got into it. It was fascinating. I was like invested. I was voting, sending my votes to the number. By the way, the craving is like an inside joke on my streams. Network 98 comes in every stream and says the craving. It's the old Taco Bell marketing commercial.
Gotcha.
They were going to make like a movie or something. So,
gotcha. I was like, I'm now. I think. All right, the craving. Yeah. Cool. All right, quick question. What was your favorite TV show from last year? I don't actually like to pick favorites. I will go with Heels season 2 because it was underwatched and canceled because it was underwatched, but it was great. So it's a wrestling show.
Okay. I haven't heard of it actually, but the
Stephen Amell from Arrow, very much in line with the like the Iron Claw, except fictionalized. So if you like the Iron Claw, there's a TV show called Heels that touches on a lot of those same things. Speaking of the bear that you just mentioned, just this week I finally watched season 1. So,
what'd you think?
Finished it last night. So this is the first time I've spoken any stream, even Patreon ones. I mean, we watched it in 2 days. That should tell you everything. Like, you just got to get hooked into it. It's the show. It's like tough, like to propose it if you haven't seen the bear. Like, it's about this guy that inherits his brother's restaurant, and there's just like a bunch of drama. Without spoiling things, it's tough to like explain what makes it so interesting. But it's all about what led people to be there and why they are the way that they are. So there's just all this intrigue built into it, and a show that doesn't treat the audience like they're stupid. Like it thinks you're smart enough to remember things.
Yeah, and I remember I was trying to get my brother to watch it, and then he was like, "Oh, I watched 2 episodes. I stopped. I thought it was a comedy." And that's like a thing apparently. A lot of people think it's like a sitcom just because of the way it's categorized in award shows, which is an outdated thing we could get into another day. But yeah.
All right, next question on here. Someone named Cam asks, "Hello, Cam. She'll be joining us next week at Megacon for our Stranger Things panel, which I am very excited for that.
Pumped for that.
Have you been watching the Percy Jackson TV series, and if so, are you enjoying it? I haven't seen a single episode. That is entirely because we've been busy, and then we might have started this week, but our kids got kicked off technology for a couple of days, which also, once again, things that make life difficult. You want to watch shows with your kids, and then they get in trouble, and so you can't watch it with them. But you guys will get the behind the scenes. These are the pants.
I think I know it. Okay. I knew he was going to grab that.
Yeah. I have a shirt for if I can get it watched in time to review it. Got this one in my fan mail from the Daniel Skinner. So I'm hoping this weekend that we can binge through it, and I'll have a review for it. Maybe we'll even touch on that for 30 seconds. Well, we can talk about it in person. You can give me the inside scoop on all of that at Megacon, where we'll all be next week. But I have not seen any of it. Toxic Gamer, didn't I meet you at Megacon last year? I believe that happened.
Very cool if so.
Hopefully he can make it back. What's your favorite Mario Kart game? I think they're all great. Like, it's a consistently good series. I think kind of because of that, they all build on the past one. So whatever the latest one is the best one because it has 50 maps from previous games, plus new maps, plus its advanced technology. But, I mean, they've all always been great.
For me, the one I always think of is Mario Kart Double Dash on the GameCube. Played it all the time growing up, my brother and I, and you could do, I forget what it's called, I think maybe Grand Prix. You could run, there was like 16 tracks, I think, and you could do them all in succession. And that was my favorite. I mean, you had obviously Rainbow Road, but there was just so many memorable ones. That is one of my favorite games, period. I mean, fond, nostalgic memories of playing that when I was 4, 5, 6. That's childhood.
Yeah, I was in my 20s when that one came out. So like I had a Super Nintendo when that one came out. I originally was Super Nintendo. I didn't go with the Genesis in the early 90s. Which one did you go with in the early 90s?
Let's see. I wasn't.
That's right. So like I played that one, and then in high school, Nintendo 64. One of my friends had it. We were at his house all the time playing it. But they've just all been so good. But like there's not a miss, and they don't crank them out every year. They crank one awesome game out every generation, and I think that's a good way to do it. All right, Mickey with a super chat. What's your opinion on Marvel Studios backpedaling on Daredevil Born Again from being pseudo-canon to being directly canon to the original series? So they have I am baffled by whatever went down at Marvel Studios when they decided to do another season of Daredevil, that let's get Charlie back. We'll get Vincent D'Onofrio back, but is it canon to the previous ones? I'm not sure. I haven't decided yet. And then they're like, yeah, we're not going to bring Foggy back or Karen, but we're bringing Punisher back. And then the reports come out that maybe those characters were killed off between seasons. And then reports come out that the first 4 episodes was a courtroom drama with no Daredevil. And the people that they hired to write it was like someone that wrote like the show called Covert Ops that no one has seen. And I'm like, Daredevil's my favorite show of the last decade. You got like, what are you doing? These are terrible choices. And eventually they got to the point in time where they went, oh crap, people will murder us. Like we're taking something that people love and we are creating something dreadful. Like this is not what anyone wants. And if you want to do a different spin on Daredevil, that's fine. But if you do it with Charlie Cox, you do it with Vincent D'Onofrio, you're setting yourself for utter failure. And they realized that. So they like threw out almost everything they shot. They brought in new directors. They actually hired a showrunner, which the idea that they've been doing shows without showrunners for 4 years is insane.
Madness.
Yeah, and they brought in writers from Punisher show. They brought the stunt coordinator back. And then over the last month, it's like every week they've announced something that's like, yes, finally you're doing it right. But all they've really said is doing the most obvious version of what they should have done and announced initially. Correct. Which is, yes, Daredevil is canon. That's why we're bringing Charlie Cox in. So yes, all of that makes its way into the canon. All the trouble that comes with that, but all the fun that comes with that, it's canon. This is kind of a season 4. So then Karen and Foggy are coming back. You go, right. Like, what did you... I was like, even like, I adore that show, Charlie in the role and everything. But Charlie as Daredevil is not Robert Downey Jr. as Iron Man. It's the ensemble. It's the whole thing that made it work. And the idea that they weren't there was like, what are you doing? They brought the stunt coordinator back. Like they did all this stuff that it sounds like, yes, thank you. Thank you. You're finally doing this right. What, do you have any quick thoughts on that?
Well, yeah, even this week they announced that Bullseye's coming back, which
right, Bullseye.
Directly following the end of season 3, it's like, this is a no-brainer. I don't know why this wasn't the greenlit from the beginning.
And that's what, like, it was offensive to me for a long time because it was abusing borrowed trust. When you put Charlie Cox and Vincent D'Onofrio, you're borrowing my adoration for that previous show. Mm-hmm. But as soon as you're like, yeah, but we'll get these writers that want to do something totally different. We're not going to do Bullseye. We're not going to have the supporting cast that were pivotal to making that show. We're going to get our own stunt coordinator because he's cheaper. You're getting me to watch by taking advantage of my adoration for that thing that you are not respecting.
100%.
And now they're respecting it.
Which I'm happy for. And this is something, little story I have that's worth noting is at Fan Expo Dallas last year, I met John Bernthal. And this was prior to them scrapping this original Born Again. And I got to talk to him briefly. I said, I love you as a Punisher. I can't wait to see you back in Daredevil Born Again. And he kind of paused for a second. He was like, yeah, well, I hope you still like me after, and you won't want to throw tomatoes at my face. And we kind of laughed. Me and Cam kind of laughed, and then we thought about it when all this news came out. And we were like, it must have been a dumpster fire.
Yeah.
If he feels that way about a character he loves, because I know he's very protective over Frank Castle and wants to do it the right way. So I can only imagine what they had in store for us. The best thing that's happened to the MCU recently is that they're doing the creative overhaul.
Right. And so I have reservations still, because these same top people that greenlit the garbage are the top people that greenlit the good thing. Mm-hmm. So there's still a side to it of like, do you guys actually get it, or you're pandering in a useful direction? And maybe the pander will work, but whatever made you greenlight that other stuff, that's alarming to me. But as for the specific question, what's your opinion on Marvel Studios backpedaling on it being pseudo-canon versus directly canon? They're doing what they should have done in the first place. Like, if you're going to bring him over, don't, like, it doesn't have to be Daredevil season 4, but it needs to be a reasonable continuation that's in the spirit of that show, that continues what people loved about it. And if there's some adjustments because years have passed and it's in the MCU, that's fair. I don't expect it to be exactly the same. But if it's totally different and the tone has changed and you're removing the supporting characters and it's a courtroom drama and the action is different, well, this isn't, like, why is Charlie in this? Why didn't you just do your own thing if that's what you wanted to do? Mm-hmm. If you're bringing him back, be true to what we loved in the first place that made you want to bring him back. Alrighty, next one on here. Keep, Watch, Burn. My favorite actors edition. Harrison Ford, Will Ferrell, Jack Nicholson. I'm assuming this is we get their movies versus we lose their movies.
Yep.
I would say for me, this one's pretty easy. I would burn Jack Nicholson, I would watch Will Ferrell, and I would keep Harrison Ford. It's pretty easy because Harrison Ford, Indiana Jones, Han Solo, Jack Ryan, The Fugitive, Dr. Richard Kimball. You just keep going on and on and on.
I mean,
he is one of my favorite actors. Will Ferrell has done so many fantastic comedies that I love. Jack Nicholson, of course, is a legend, also in a ton of movies, but just different enough of an era and different enough of things that I can, like, The Shining isn't a movie that's, and it's like the Batman 89 is, but I can lose that if I gain the other stuff.
I pretty much agree 100% here. Harrison Ford played childhood icons and heroes in cinema. I mean, Indiana Jones, Star Wars, I'm keeping that. I'll watch the comedy films of Will Ferrell because comedies aren't inherently rewatchable to me once you know the shtick and the joke. It's kind of like, okay, that was funny. I don't need to watch it again necessarily. And then Nicholson.
Do you rewatch The Office? Are you an Office nut?
I like The Office. I haven't rewatched it in a few years, but I've seen it probably 3 times all the way through. It's rewatchable. I think TV shows are more rewatchable for comedies than movies.
The first 4 seasons of The Office, probably by an exponential factor, the TV show my wife and I have rewatched the most. But anyway, sorry, I cut you off there.
No, you're good. And then I'd burn Nicholson. I would sorely miss The Departed the most of all of his films. I mean, The Shining and One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest are fantastic movies, but I don't really get the urge on a Friday night to be like, I want to pop one of those in and feel depressed for 2 hours after. So, yeah, they're great movies, though. But that would be my order as well.
All right, quick question in here. Are you going to review Percy Jackson? I hope so. Because I have the shirt to do it. It's a matter of, can I get it watched this weekend? And then if you haven't heard, we're heading off to Megacon in a week. So there's a little bit of a time constraint of I have to get it done in a pretty narrow window of time. Otherwise, I'll be pretty late to the party on that one.
The finale's actually the 30th. You're aware of that, right?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay,
yeah. I've had it on my schedule. I've been paying attention. I'm not going to do week to week. Probably don't need to be that guy. Mm-hmm. But we'll see. Some quick ones in here that I can just give answers to. Top 5 movies of all time. I have a video with my top 40 favorite movies of all time. Do you have one like that too, I assume?
I've never been able to have the courage to do it. I'm so indecisive.
It's tough. And it's like mine, it's all movies from my formative years. It's like Rocky to Terminator 2. They're all in that window right there. And so people make fun of me all the time for that. But it's like, for me, favorite movies, those are the ones that shaped me. So, of course, they're going to be old. It's not going to be my favorite movie from 2 years ago. The fact that Top Gun Maverick now cracks my top 50 and it only came out a year and a half ago, that's a big deal.
Absolutely.
But, yeah, it's tough. Did you like Echo? I have a review of Echo out there, so it's covered. So I don't want to dive too much into some of these ones that are video covered. Disney Nerd. Hello, Mr. the Disney Nerd. He is deputized, so if he tells you what to do in the comment section, he is doing that with my authority. Hello, gentlemen. Are you guys anticipating the Netflix Adam Sandler movie titled Spaceman? I actually haven't watched the trailer for it. I'm aware of the trailer, and I saw the buzz surrounding the trailer, but I didn't watch the full trailer. How about you?
I have not seen the trailer. Is this the movie? Is Paul Dano in this movie, or is that a different one? I could be getting things mixed up, but I have no clue what this is. I'm actually going to look it up on my phone right now. Yeah, it's just like a comedy space film. Like, what's the deal?
It's different.
Paul Dano is.
I didn't watch the trailer, so I can't say. So we are ignorant to be able to comment too much on this one, unfortunately for you. What is your theory for Stranger Things 5? Funny you should ask that exact question because I know a guy who is hosting a panel at Megacon on February 4th. He's right over there. I will be joining him, and we will be having that exact discussion. It will be recorded, shared on the interwebs, but I haven't done my homework yet, so I don't have any theories yet. He does,
fair,
but I don't.
Fair. Yeah. It's going to be fun, and one of the big ones, one of the big talking points, will Eddie Munson return? That's the hot topic, I feel.
Sean, did you finish the Flash show? I've seen the finale. I didn't watch the whenever I stopped reviewing it, that's where I stopped. I just stopped watching at that point in time, and I watched the finale, and I thought it was pretty terrible.
I never watched the show. I couldn't get past the first episode years ago. That's just me, though.
That is hurtful. How dare you, sir? How dare you, sir?
Disrespect the CW.
Dismond, hello, friend of the channel. I just wanted to say hi. I guess I'll ask you if you're watching True Detective Night Country. Been covering it on my channel and having a lot of fun with it. I actually haven't seen any of True Detective. I think I started the first season whenever it first came out, but it was just kind of like a busy season of life, and so I didn't keep up with it. And so I've never seen any of the seasons of True Detective.
I've seen the first season, which many people will claim is like the best season of TV ever. I thought it was really well done. I haven't watched it. It was 2019, I want to say. And I mean, that was during the reconnaissance when it actually came out in like 2014-ish or early 2010s, I'll say. I dug it. I need to watch it again, though. And I've heard the third season with Mahershala Ali is also the closest to that first season. Heard season 2 was and I heard season 4 is okay so far.
That's kind of the impression that one of the things that caused me to not go down that path is that it sounded like, oh, it was great. And then, it didn't seem like a show that is consistent. So unfortunately,
I like the
that's
anthology
not
concept, like how each like you can watch one season without watching the others.
And more shows should do things like that. That there's a vibe that you like, that an energy that you get, like you want people to be a part of, but that doesn't mean this set of characters makes sense to have 2 stories or ongoing. So I think there is a lot of weight to that. Here's a fun one, something different direction. What's your favorite metal band?
I don't think I even know one. Maybe it's Metallica. What? Technically metal than Metallica, but even then, I'm not like a metalhead really.
What?
I know.
What sort of music do you listen to?
I listen to just about everything. I texted my buddy
about
this.
Except metal, apparently.
Except metal and country music, yes. So I'll listen to like the dad rock, we have a rock station. I'll listen to that, but I'll listen to Broadway musicals. I'll listen to movie scores. I'll listen to, some pop music. I pretty much like it all, and then I just don't like metal. Because when I think of metal, maybe this is the thing. I haven't been introduced to the right metal. When I hear metal, I think of like screaming, like is that all metal, or is there other?
Yeah, I mean, there's all different, like every genre.
Yeah.
By now, they've found some way to do metal riffs with soulful vocals, with growling. Like it's all out there.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, I mean, for me, I'm not going to have particularly interesting answers. I mean, 80s Metallica is great. Pantera in the 90s was great. But those are like the most obvious answers for someone my age to give. I'm old enough that my metal phase was a long time ago.
Like when Obi-Wan's like, that's the name I haven't heard in a long time.
Yeah.
Long time.
It remind like well, this isn't a metal band, but speaking of the bear, it kicks off, and one of the music cues is from the band Refused from their album The Shape of Punk to Come. Not metal, but I heard it and I went, "That's Refused. I remember this album that came out 25 years ago," and I was so very proud of myself.
Is that the music from like the very beginning of the first episode? Yeah, I love that. That was that sounded cool.
Yeah, so it's like this very well, I guess you're being a little bit assumptive if you name it, or presumptive if you name your album The Shape of Punk to Come. You're telling the genre where it's headed, but it was a very influential band and album from that era. What's your favorite movie franchise?
This is tough. I'd say, I wish I could say Star Wars. I can't anymore. I would probably have to say like the most consistently great to me is Harry Potter. Is it my favorite? I don't know, but if I could take the first 3 indie films and Crystal Skull, I would put that as my answer. Not a dial guy.
I don't know anymore, because like there's stuff that I used to say all the time, like Marvel Cinematic Universe.
Yeah.
20 movies straight, they were really good, and then you just can't say that anymore. And it's like there's so much in there. It's like I don't know. Like I don't. And when you say something's your favorite, there's a vibe to that people assume things that isn't necessarily true.
Yeah.
So yeah, I don't know anymore what I would say. I have a video ranking my favorite franchises, but it's far enough back that my answers would be different.
That's a lot of videos now. I find the more I make rankings, it's like it changes over the years.
Oh yeah.
And then you're associated with what you said in this video 3 years ago forever.
Yeah, and I so like 2020 COVID, I did top 10 Tuesdays. I hate all those videos because it's like I needed to do something. Excuse me. I did think about, like, I put a lot of thought into them, but there's just so much stuff you can potentially say or think in those. Like they're like your favorite actors, your favorite director. They're just weird ones to pick.
I agree.
Hello, Sean and Chris. Who would you say is currently the overall bigger movie star, Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson or Tom Cruise? And I think right now the Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson is, he's had a little bit of feels like the peak was a few years back when those Jumanji movies were doing a little bit better. But the thing is, Tom Cruise is a 40-year A-lister. Been an A-lister. I mean, like, The Rock's been a movie star for 20 years, but he hasn't been an A-lister for 20 years. Tom Cruise has been an A-lister for 40 years. And made a movie that almost just based purely on him made close to $2 billion. So I don't think there's a debate that Tom Cruise is the bigger movie star.
I think they're not even on the same playing field. Like, to me, Tom Cruise is the clear answer here. I mean, people to this day still go to the movies just for him. I don't know anyone, no disrespect to The Rock, who are like, yeah, I can't wait to see The Rock's new movie. But Tom Cruise has that appeal through generations of people. So I would say Tom Cruise.
Mm-hmm. Galaxy Geeks, friend of the channel. Strangely, I think it's easier for me to pick my least favorite directors over my favorite. Do you have a least favorite director? I think I'd be the opposite, because I just don't think in kind of some of those terms. I don't think, like, I don't know that there's a director. I just don't. Olivier Megatron, the guy that did Taken 2 and 3,
mm-hmm.
That guy's a disaster.
Okay.
Yeah, but
I'm unfamiliar with him personally. I'm not.
You haven't seen Taken 2 and 3?
I've seen Taken 2.
So you just look up his style is just cut. So it's just nonsense. So it's like taking what would otherwise be straightforward, simple, like, yeah, Liam Neeson beating up terrorists, cool. And then it just chops the action to pieces and makes it unwatchable. And it's the biggest problem with Taken 2 and 3 is the director.
I would say, to answer this question, I don't really think of like, oh, I'm a least favorite director, because if I don't like someone's work, I'm just not going to seek it out. I would say, I could light a fire right now. I don't know if I will, but I I don't care for Zack Snyder. I wouldn't say he's my least favorite, but I just don't care for
Where's
it.
the
So.
exit button on here?
Kick me out. Boot me out of the stream.
There we go. It's just me now.
Oh man, yeah. Man of Steel, I think, is his best work that I've seen. But the rest of his DC stuff, not a fan of. Not even really crazy about the Snyder Cut, but I haven't seen 300, so I do feel it's unfair to judge his work because I haven't.
Dawn
seen
of the Dead.
No, see, that's the thing. I've only seen his DC work, and so it's like weird to even say it. I just say I don't like his style in DC, but that's not even making him a least favorite director.
He started off with 2 movies that are pretty simple, straightforward. They're not plot heavy, and they're very much about the aesthetic, the vibe, the energy, and the style. Like you talk about that he's style over substance, and those are movies where that works well. It serves those movies. And 300 is one of the most stylized, distinctly what it is movies of all time. And then since then, he's done very story-dense movies, while that not necessarily being his strong suit. And so I don't know if you'd like Dawn of the Dead or 300, but you'd probably watch them and be like, yeah, he did. This isn't my thing. 300 is like. It's like you either love this movie or you're like, oh, it's literally like guys in bearskin underwear, like being macho for 2 hours and dying. Not for me. Or you're like, this is the greatest thing I've ever seen. But you can respect it for what it is. All right, this one was actually in your stream last night. What's your favorite Foo Fighters song?
Ooh, right on the spot. I would say I'd have to go to my playlist to really answer that. Do you have one that comes to mind off the top of your head?
If we're going the first album, I go with I'll Stick Around. Some nice power chord rock in there. Second one, I got to go My Hero. Just such a killer drum beat that works so well in so many different movies. And then from the Greatest Hits album, Wheels, that has a very Tom Petty vibe to it. And someone asked about my favorite songs. I don't like to pick favorite songs, but probably something in the Tom Petty vein. And Wheels is a very Tom Petty-esque Foo Fighters song.
When you said My Hero, my mind went to the other guys. You think what I'm thinking, partner? Aim for the bushes. Every time, and it's bust out laughing.
So good. Yes.
I would say I love, I think Everlong's a great workout song. I usually listen to that when I work out. So,
Color and the Shape is packed with great songs. Like there's like 4 like all-timers, big gigantic hits. My Hero, Everlong, but then all of the in-between songs are also really, really good. We actually already covered the Mario Kart question earlier on, so if you can rewind through that one. So like every time I do these, I just fall so far behind instantly. So we're 30 minutes behind on questions. I do that like Patreon. So if you guys don't know, I do 2 different live streams on Patreon every single week. So if you join at any level over there, even just $2 per month, $20 per year, you get access to all of this. And I answer everybody's questions. And they're normally like 2 hours long, but within the first 5 minutes, they ask enough questions that I'm an hour behind by the time I answer those initial questions. Alrighty. Do you have a favorite James Bond movie or era? So I have a ranking of all the James Bond movies. I watched through all of the main. I didn't watch like the 1950s Casino Royale TV movie. I didn't watch the 1960s Casino Royale spoof, but of the main, I watched through all of those ones and did a ranking. But Daniel Craig's my favorite era. I just like just the nature of the action, a more human Bond. And I don't like Roger Moore's era particularly. There's some couple good movies in there, but I don't really like that era. Some of the Sean Connery ones, they can be a little they have not aged well. There's some stuff in there that it's like, oh, well, we definitely wouldn't do that now. I really enjoyed Timothy Dalton's 2 movies. Pierce Brosnan was that's where was my on ramp, but he very uneven set of films. How about you?
My intro to Bond was Daniel Craig. I mean, Casino Royale came out in 2006. I was 6. So, I mean, I remember watching those movies growing up with my dad. And, I'd say he has his ups and downs, but Daniel Craig's my favorite. I've seen a fair share of the other ones with my dad because he's a big Bond guy, but I haven't seen every Bond movie. One that I remember watching all the time randomly is The Man with the Golden Gun. That was one I watched it was on that Encore cable channel. So I've watched that film, and I've seen a few Sean Connery ones as well. But no, I'd say Daniel Craig because they feel like legitimate movies. I'm not discrediting the old Bond stuff, but it's like just cheese fests a lot of the time.
And it's some of it's unfair because you're talking about like what were action movies before Doctor No.
Yeah.
And so then you watch Doctor No, and in some of the scenes they play like stage fights. And then, the action was groundbreaking for the 60s, but it feels so simplistic now. So it's like my buddy Cody Leach, who will be at Megacon next week, and we'll be doing some panels with him. He went to try and watch something. He's like, I just can't do this. And that's fair. There's older movies that I watch that other people, like Superman 78, I grew up on it. Someone watches it and they go, this is dated. You're not wrong. Mm-hmm. Movie clips for you, sis. Can you please answer my question? Yes, I can answer this question, but there are 600 comments in here, so I'm assuming you had a different question. I don't know what it is. Like, I'm just moving through this really quick. Quick one right here. Thoughts on Top Gun 3. I have a second channel called Sean Chandler Plus. I have a video where I talk about that one, so you can check that out there. Mr. Flickster. As content creators, I always have issues with copyright claims and blocked videos. Do either of you have any advice on how to deal with this? Well, the YouTube is the wild, wild west. That they don't have firm lines. They don't protect creators. They don't really protect studios. They have this very weird middle ground of wishy-washiness. And the more footage you use that is not your footage, the more likely it is you'll get claimed or blocked. Certainly the more music you use, the more audio you use, the easier it is for their detection systems to catch it. And the more likely it is that you will get claimed, blocked, or a strike. So the simple advice is use less of their stuff. I have had almost nothing. I've had probably less than 10 things blocked in the history of my channel, and I have over 3,000 videos. Whatever has been blocked was probably like a trailer reaction or a clip reaction. Probably a clip reaction, more common. But like as for my movie rankings, movie reviews, I've never had one of those blocked. Oh, I've never had a strike. I've had hundreds of claims. Mm-hmm. But a huge percentage of my trailer reactions are claimed. I just take that on as the cost of doing reactions. That I get the exposure, I get an easy video to talk about something, but I probably won't make money on it. Simple rule of thumb that I use: I keep my clips under 5 seconds, and I use as little as audio as possible. And when I use audio, I'll frequently put like a film reel over it. I'll cut out a second in the middle. I'll like zoom in. I'll speed it up to 104%. I'll like flip, I'll do weird stuff to try and throw their detectors off. But if you use a lot of clips, you'll get a lot of claims. The less you use, the less you get claimed. But I'm not aware of like, here's the trick to get away with it. And also pay attention to which studios are bad about it. Disney doesn't claim a lot. Universal, they claim everything. Paramount, they claim everything.
Warner Bros.
So like Warner Brothers, I haven't had as bad of luck with them, but compared to Paramount and Universal, but like compared to Disney, yeah, Warner Brothers, another one's like out of the blue. They'll claim this review I put out years ago. And so like Paramount, there are videos where I was like, I'll only put out 2-second little clips from the trailer. But do you have any other thoughts?
Yeah, I'd say I did. It depends on what you're getting into. Definitely music in general that's not like copyright free will get you a claim minimum, potentially blocked. Also, if you're doing reaction videos, not like trailer reactions, but reactions to a movie or a TV show, yeah, use like 4 seconds of footage max at a time. Cut it up as much as you can. Don't, turn the audio down here and there. Little tricks, put things over the actual, episode footage. Those are little tricks to avoid those things. But like you said, I've never really had a video outright blocked. Maybe once or twice. The Ghostbusters Afterlife trailer blocked. And I was like, all right, I'm not doing this then. So they didn't even let it go public. This was 3 years ago.
And there's once where I heard stuff like that was happening with the Nope trailer. People put out their trailer reactions for Nope and it got blocked. So I just didn't cover it. Mm-hmm. And my PR reps from Universal like, hey, we got the new Nope trailer. If you can give us any coverage, we'd appreciate it. And I emailed them back. I'm not going to cover this because all of my friends who did cover it had their video blocked. Mm-hmm. So I'm not going to cover this. I recommend you send this up the Universal ladder. your studio is infamous for behaving in a manner that makes us not cover your stuff. Don't know, nothing good came of it, but didn't really change much, but said stuff. Someone says Zach Pope. Yes, Zach Pope. He's getting married in just a few weeks. So I'm heading out to his wedding. Pretty excited about that. That's pretty fun the way that when you have stuff like that where you meet people over the internet in this world of YouTube and then actually go through life together. Real quick one. Favorite MCU show, and Marvel Netflix now counts because that's technically MCU. Favorite MCU show.
Okay. Man, if I can count those, then I'm going to say The Punisher. I love Punisher.
Yeah. You go Punisher over Daredevil.
I do. I know it's a hot take, but I embrace it. I even like the second season of Punisher. It's like got those Logan, Last of Us vibes, father-daughter relationship. So I dig it. Yeah, give me The Punisher.
I'm going Daredevil easy on that one.
Fair.
And well, even to the Punisher point, loved all of the Daredevil Punisher stuff in season 2, but loved all the seasons. Just so good.
Now, if we were going just MCU before they canonized everything, I would take Loki.
I go Hawkeye.
Okay.
Like that's a bunch of people like, oh, what Hawkeye? What are you talking?
That's one of my favorites of them. Yeah.
That's I get it. If you think the finale was rushed, I think that they sabotaged themselves by treating Kingpin as a twist reveal rather than a presence throughout. And I'm sure it had to do with Spider-Man: No Way Home and when they decided that those came out the same week that it was revealed. It was like the same day.
No, I got to be honest. It's refreshing to hear that because I've had Hawkeye higher in my ranking. People would be like, horrible.
Oh, what are you moron?
L.
It actually feels like a TV show.
Yeah.
And so like that's to me, it's like a street level TV show. This is what more of them should be. But yeah, and very strange. Hey, Sean and Chris, thoughts on the new Avatar Last Airbender Netflix show? Did you watch the animated series? It's one of my favorite series ever. So I've seen about 12 episodes of the TV show. Watch it. The problem I run into with a lot of these is that I want to watch them with my kids, and trying to watch 24 episodes with my kids when they have other things they want to watch, and I don't want them to just sit there and watch TV all the time. It gets tough. It's pretty easy for me and my wife. Like, kids went to bed, let's watch The Bear. We watched the TV show The Bear, the whole season. First off, it's only 8 episodes, but also we just in 2 days because the kids went to bed, and we stayed up until 2 a.m. watching a show. But with the kids, I don't. It's not quite that simple. So I haven't watched as much. Everything I've seen, it looks good, but and it's on my radar to watch it. But like I'm not the target audience.
No, yeah. See, I was at one point when I was growing up, and it was coming on Nickelodeon, and I was hyped to watch it week to week, and I did that. I watched the show when it came out, and I have not watched it since. So we're talking, it's been since like 2008 since I've revisited the show. I've been really wanting to do a rewatch prior to the upcoming Netflix series. I don't know if that's going to happen. That's about a month out now. But no, my thoughts on it, I think that it looks pretty epic in scale and visually. I'm like, yeah, all right. But also, I don't know if it's going to land with me anymore because of like where I'm at in life and my current interests in movies and shows. So we'll just have to see. I can say with confidence that the Shyamalan movie was garbage. So this is probably already better than that.
That's my favorite M. Night Shyamalan film. What are you talking about? It was such good storytelling, acting, pronunciation of characters' names, like top tier.
It is iconic, you know. I wonder how many Razzies it won. That's funny.
Yeah, so point of reference. Like I'm just scrolling through the questions. And Chris, explain the craving to Sean. That's how far behind we are on all of this.
That happens. Yeah.
Oh,
that's
dear.
Hilarious.
All right. What's your favorite TV episode from last year? Oh, that gets tough trying to remember which show, like what shows came out. Especially with modern television, where you kind of binge it, and sometimes the seasons play more as 8-hour movies, 4-hour movies, as opposed to you think viewing it in specific episodes. That can be tough. I don't know that I have one that immediately comes to mind from this season. Like I could think of some previous years where I could be like, oh, this episode from the first season of Ted Lasso.
Well, I'll say I have two, and you haven't seen them yet, but it's episode 6 and 7 of the Bear season 2.
Bear, yeah.
Fishes and Forks.
I've heard that.
Yeah.
Now, even some of that where it's like, oh, these are the best episodes of television I've ever seen. Like, all right, this is winning all the awards. This guy's in the Iron Claw. Seems like my wife and I need to watch through this. And so that one's on my radar, but not there yet. So yeah. We're close. But
well, when you get there, I'm sure you'll enjoy them.
Yeah. So unfortunately, I don't have a good answer. So just go back to my answer. Heels,
what about The Last of Us? Did you have any from The Last of Us that you liked that stood out?
I mean, the whole season was.
Yeah.
That was a year ago. That's right. I mean, I just enjoyed the whole season. So, I don't know. Offhand, I don't. I guess it's been a year, so I haven't opened the files. Yeah. But I don't know. That's what's so tough about so much modern television is that you process it and think about it differently than episodic, where it's like a clear plot for the episode versus one piece of this bigger whole. So that's the trick I keep running into.
It's the price we pay, though, for the cinematic television. I'll take it.
Will you be going to Disney World or Universal after Megacon or not? No, I'm not. I am like all booked up on my time. Like I'm showing up. It's like all the con, hanging out with people, hanging out with my YouTuber friends, hanging out with you. So I don't have anything in there. Are you guys doing anything fancy, Universals or anything like that?
I don't think so this year. There's a potential we may at like the day after it's all done, but unlikely this year. We did last year, though. That was cool.
It's like, even like in my case, like I come home Monday, that next weekend is Zach Pope's wedding. So like, it's just like that kind of just chaotic, even kind of being gone for 3 days that's time where I'm not with my so Toxic Game, we referenced him like an hour ago. Yeah, we did meet y'all. Yeah, it's helpful. 37 minutes ago. So hopefully Toxic Gamer can come out to MegaCon to join us once again for our incredible ones. Though we're talking about my aging. So comments on that one.
It's always fun reading through the old questions, catching up, doing speed rounds.
Yeah. All right, here's easy one for me. Who's your guys' favorite movie character of all time? Rocky Balboa. Okay. So, love Stallone. I love seeing characters in different phases of life. So that's where, like, sometimes these long-delayed sequels, if they're the right kind of ones, can work really well. So, that's where, like, seeing Rocky from loser days to 70s mentoring Adonis. I love those sorts of things. Top Gun Maverick. One of the reasons that works so well for me on so many levels is seeing a character in a different phase of life. But Rocky Balboa, of just like the ultimate underdog story, such a sweet, kind-hearted, violent person who's so loyal to people that don't necessarily deserve his loyalty at times. And so I just love that sort of thing.
Very lovable, for sure. I mean, mine's Indiana Jones. It always has been since I was a kid. I would go out in the backyard. I had a
Speaking of getting to see characters in different phases of life, in Dial of Destiny, we get to see him as like a depressed old man who's a loser and drinks himself to sleep in front of the TV, just like the fantasy of Indiana Jones. I can't wait to see him pathetic.
That was the best iteration of the character for sure, and a very necessary movie. Oh man, but
sorry,
no, Indy's my favorite. No, Indy's my favorite. I'd go out in the backyard, had the cosplay before cosplaying was even something I knew about, and I would reenact like the opening scene, the switch, and everything. So yeah, and I played the Lego games. I love Indiana Jones.
We got Impressive Tony in a question he asked 35 minutes ago, and I'll be talking with him actually tomorrow on a video chat. On Patreon, I do two live streams every week. I also do video chats at the highest tier, which is a ton of fun because you actually get to talk with people about specific things in detail. And it's just cool because we all just love talking movies too much. So I'm actually talking with Tony tomorrow. Also, so his question, hey fellas, can't wait to see you both at MegaCon. Thanks for inspiring people like me to pursue their passions. Keep up the great work. He will actually be part of our panel on YouTube and TikTok.
Oh, wow.
So
Very cool.
he'll be joining in. We've got something a little bit different planned that I haven't done at one of these before that I'm very excited to be a part of, which is one of the things we'll be talking about tomorrow. Everyone, check out Tony's channel. He's a great guy. So, and we'll all be at Megacon next week. Remember that if you haven't heard that yet.
February 1st through February 4th.
Do you like Cobra Kai? Both of us, I believe, are big Cobra Kai fans and have covered a ton of Cobra Kai on our channels.
That is right. Cobra Kai never dies, baby.
Hey, Sean, have you played Red Dead Redemption 2? What do you think? How would you rate it on a scale of 1 to 10? I own it. I've played the first hour. I can't really grade it based off an hour because it was just like riding a horse for an hour. That's all I've done. I just don't really have time for a lot of video games. Besides Fortnite, because I can play it with my kids, or My Singing Monster Playground Edition, play with my kids. Mario Kart, play with my kids. Notice the theme in here. It's simple stuff that I can play with my kids, or that you could just fire up a game of Fortnite real quick. I just don't have time.
Yeah, I've never played that game. I've heard people, praise it as one of the best ever, though. I just haven't heard it's like really long gameplay.
Yeah. It's tough. Like a 30-hour campaign. I don't have 30 hours. Favorite DiCaprio role? Can't believe he got snubbed. Yeah, it's always tough. There's only 5 people that get nominated. And if there's 8 great performances, someone gets snubbed. And is that a snub, or is it just competitive? And I think 3 of the people in there are the easy front runners that everyone has been talking about. And then Netflix did a big push for Rustin. I've got Rustin stuff right here that they sent me. Coleman Domingo got in because of that. And then Jeffrey Wright gave a great performance. He's winning a lot of these smaller ones. Coleman gave a great I haven't seen Rustin, so I'm based on everything I've heard, gave a fantastic performance. Yeah. He's the good thing about that movie. I haven't watched it because what I've heard is not a particularly memorable film, but a great performance. So it's tough. Like, who do you boot? There's 3 people that you're not booting. And then Coleman Domingo gave a great performance, or Jeffrey Wright, who gave what many is calling a career best performance. It's tough.
I agree wholeheartedly, and Jeffrey Wright was one of my favorites last year. Obviously, the 3 you're referring to, Killian, Giamatti, and Bradley Cooper, I assume. So, yeah, it's hard. Who do you kick out? I don't know.
So cool to see 2 of my top 2 YouTubers teaming up, and we'll be teaming up again next week at Megacon, if you haven't heard us talk about it yet.
Megacon, February 1st through 4th.
I believe you just did a video on this, so you can... believe it, within the last week you did a whole tier ranking of all the projects, giving your full answer to this one. What's the number one? What's the one at the top?
Peacemaker season 2. I didn't know it was going to be a thing until recently, but I love the first season, so that's my most anticipated DCU project.
I'm gonna go with Superman Legacy, simply because it's the kickoff. It's the one that you're gonna go, is this thing gonna work? I love Superman. I love Superman and Batman are my 2 favorite superheroes because they're kind of the two extremes of the person with no power but uses all of his resources to stop people from facing the trauma he faced, and then the God amongst men who was raised by such good people that despite having all the power to be dominate the world, chooses to use that power for good. Those are my 2 favorites. We've had a lot of Batman, which I love, but new Superman from James Gunn, I don't know what that means. There's just a lot to that kind of has me very, very curious. Here's one. Sean Holmes, what are your thoughts on the Disney's rumored Tron 3 movie? It's not rumored. It's like it's happening. So you don't need to put the word rumored on it. It is happening. There's director, there's cast. I think they're filming. Let me look that up.
Yeah, I think they are as well. Like, I think I saw something about production starting the other day, even. Jared Leto, of course, is starring.
Was scheduled to begin August 14th. Postponed, of course, due to the strikes. How announced the project? Yes, January 24. Revealed production has begun. Gunn. So, I mean, Jared Leto starring, Evan Peters, Greta Lee, that's right, Gillian Anderson was recently announced to be in it. Our director on this one, guess the guy that did the last Pirates of the Caribbean movie.
Oh, is that Marshall guy, or is that the guy who did the fourth film? He did the fifth Pirates?
I have no idea how to say this guy's name. Joachim space RONNING. I have no clue how to say that. All right, so Tron. What's your experience with Tron?
I watched Tron Legacy whenever it came out, and I was like, it was okay. And I never watched any other movies, so I don't care about this at all. And the fact that guy's directing it, I think the fifth Pirates film is disgraceful. Like one of the worst theatrical experiences I've ever had. So I don't feel too confident to be honest with that.
Okay. As for me, so I'm old enough that kind of grew up with Tron, but never loved it. Actually, the best man for my wedding is favorite movie of all time. And then my wife really likes Tron. And there was a point in time where we rented Tron and forgot to return it. And so you couldn't rent Tron in North Austin because we had the one rental copy and we forgot we had it. That's a real thing that happened. New one comes out. I think it's aside from the de-aging, which wasn't there yet. Visually, I think it looks great. It's from the director of Top Gun Maverick. The score is fantastic. Daft Punk's score on that, it's like an all-timer that people forget about. Like it's just so distinct. It fits the movie. It's amazing. But I don't feel like the stories for Tron have ever matched the fun visuals of Tron. So maybe this will be the difference. To your point, I'm not particularly hopeful with what we have. Thoughts on Fantastic Four casting, worst MCU project since Endgame? So, I mean, like I posted I posted many of my MCU rankings. I think She-Hulk is the most misguided project. That I can understand where someone might like She-Hulk. Like if you find it funny, if you find it amusing, that it could be your thing. But it's the sort of thing that's so off, so different tonally, the way that it does meta, the way that it, like the fact that it ends insulting the writer's room, but doesn't undo, like that doesn't come up with it, that I just thought that it was such a poor idea. And the people are like, well, that's what the comics are like. There's a big difference between what works in a comic and what works in live action. There's a difference between what works in a book, what works in a movie. There's a difference between what works in animation and what works in live action. Like they're all different formats where they have strengths, weaknesses, and what we're able to like accept. And like She-Hulk does not take the MCU seriously, and thus in canon they have something that cheapens something that matters to me. So that's the one that's the most off to me. What's your?
I'll go with the movie route with this. I would say Thor: Love and Thunder. I was just
that's right there too for me.
Yeah,
that's the
just
other one.
Devastated with that one because I enjoyed Ragnarok so much, and this movie, it just never took itself seriously in my opinion, and it just felt like a big bit the entire time that never landed. I saw the movie early, and then I actually went and saw it with a buddy, and we were sitting next to each other. And that moment happens where Thor like starts riding like a broomstick, like it's the Wizard of Oz, and he's like, "Oh no, is this the whole movie?" And I was like, "Just get ready, man." So yeah,
but it's a bit while also being like, let's tackle the theological and philosophical problem of evil. Like these are some of the questions that mankind, people of faith, have wrestled with for all of history. If there is a God, why does bad things happen to people? And they built that plot line into a Thor movie where our lead character is a god. That's a great setup. That is like a profound, deep setup for a Thor movie. And you don't even get through, like you start off with this cold open that it's like a guy holding his dead child. Yeah. And then it immediately cuts to like joke stuff. And you go, oh crap. and it's tackling cancer and all of it. Like, there's a love triangle between a hammer and two people. Like, I just like. So I saw it in the theater right before it came out. I saw it at a weird day. Like, there was some stuff kind of going on with someone who I went to go see it with. It was like a real heavy day for us. And so I wasn't sure if my initial reaction was off because of that. And my wife refused to go see it because she loves Ragnarok and didn't want her impression to be hurt by this film. So she didn't watch it until I did my rewatch right before my most recent MCU ranking back in November. And we got like 5 minutes into it. She goes, I hate this. Is this what the whole movie, what, like your friend said, is this what the whole movie is? Like, yeah, it only gets worse from here. And it was just, like, there's a bit in it at New Asgard where they have an ice cream shop called Infinity Cones, where it's Thanos' gauntlet. And so it's legitimately the weapon of destruction for ice cream. People are like, well, it could be a celebration of, that was also the device that was used to bring people back. No, that is the Infinity Gauntlet, not Tony Stark's nano glove.
Yep.
They're not the same thing. They don't look the same. And the sort of stuff where they're like ignoring, just like making a joke out of genocide, and people trying to defend it like, whoa. If you have to defend genocide jokes that make no sense, they cheapen the universe. This is not a real thing. Like, it is like, as crass as what I'm saying is, it's the equivalent of if you had a quirky Auschwitz store. It does, like, you hear that and you go, ugh. Even saying that makes you feel sick to your stomach. That's what Infinity Cones is. You can't spin it any other way.
It was totally all over the place. It was a mess for me. I was super just like, as the credits rolled, almost like questioning, like you said, like I was like, there's no way it was that bad, right? And then I went and saw it again, and I was like, sure enough. Man, I think Taika's done too, like in the MCU. I don't think he's done as a filmmaker, but I think that the public perception of him, there was a point in time after he won the Oscar for Jojo Rabbit where it was like he can do anything he wants. And then recently in the media, it's like, I don't know if people want anything to do with him anymore. So who knows if he'll come back to the MCU ever.
And it's thoughts on a Fantastic Forecast. Since we've just done so much of this, like, rumor, who is it? I don't have any specific thoughts at the moment. On my second channel, you can look up. I've done little ones talking about the specific ones, but
just announce it. That's my thoughts. Just announce it.
Yeah, like that we've been playing this game for so long. It's so weird that Daniel RK or something, like one of these leakers, is like, it's confirmed. The announcement's coming soon. Soon as the strike ends, before the year ends, before the end of January. Like, I just, like, I'm done with it. Anthony says, Stranger Things is overrated, my honest opinion. I think it's a tough argument to say that Stranger, like, you could say that maybe it lost its way, but Stranger, like, it's an incredibly well done show. Like,
I mean, it's
really well done.
You know, I don't think you can call it overrated when it breaks these records for Netflix every time a new season drops,
breaks records, multi-generational.
100%.
That, like, people that grew up with the 80s stuff that it's nostalgic for, love it. People that haven't watched any of those, love it. Like, so I'm 80s kid, you're 20 years younger than me, and then my daughter who's 15 years younger than you, all three love this thing. So I think they've tapped into something with just great characters, a great blend of genres. So I don't think there's much of an argument. Like, if you say that you think that season 2 or 3 or whatever, like, went in the wrong direction, fair enough. That's not the same thing as saying it's overrated.
No, yeah, I think that Stranger Things has fallen victim to something that a lot of popular pieces of media do, where just because something is so universally loved, there's a crowd that, you know, goes, oh, it's overrated, it kind of stinks. And that happens with every big hit movie as well. And I don't know why. I have no clue why that happens.
Whatever that is like, we have to have the pushback. We have to, like, no, you don't. You could also just say, oh, it's not for me. It's really well done, but it's not for me. Mm-hmm. It's a good thing to do that. Sean, did you see Oppenheimer in 70 millimeter? I did not. I saw it in FOMAX, the IMAX that's like LIMAX. It's the right aspect ratio. It is a big screen, but it's not that great. But actually, the fun detail about when I saw it, I sat next to if you've seen the show Superman and Lois, the current Superman show, the actor that played Jonathan Kent, their son in the first 2 seasons. He's from the next town over from where I live. He's at a lot of press screenings. I end up sitting right next to him during the movie.
Wow.
But as soon as the credits roll, he left. So I was like actually distracted watching Oppenheimer. Like I enjoy his show. I thought I like his character. So like once I'm gonna talk to because I've seen him, but I'd never been like in the exact context to say something. Then we're seated next to each other. Like as soon as the credits roll, I'll be good to go. And he just left.
It's a shame, a bummer.
That was my moment.
I saw Oppenheimer in Dolby and then IMAX, but not like 70 millimeter IMAX, which I had hoped to do, but it was sold out for like the entirety of its run there when I tried to go book a third screening. So, yeah.
Lucas, not seeing True Detective season 1 is a crime. That's my understanding. It is literally illegal.
It's illegal.
Yeah.
You're not going to be at Megacon next week, I guess. You'll be arrested, Sean. Oh man.
If we can have a quick answer on this one, kind of an interesting one. I don't think I've been asked this specific one. What ways do you think you've grown since you created your channel? So I'm assuming I created my channel for me 2016. So approaching 8 years. How have I grown? I don't know. I think, obviously outside of the channel, you could talk about having kids growing older, and my channel was launched during a phase of life where I was trying to repair a lot of damage, and so I'm in a much healthier place than I was 8 years ago, and things are much more balanced and better. Just in terms of like the movie space, when you watch movies for a living, and you really want to embrace that, you just watch more of everything. Like before we started, we were talking about how I go see Indian films every month. And that's just something that's a new thing of like that wouldn't have been on my radar 8 years ago, but that's now like a thing my wife and I do every month. And you just try to discover things, and I'm in a critics association now, and so you just watch movies a little differently, and you see more of them and appreciate film on a broader level. And the longer I do it, the more I just kind of appreciate that different people have different opinions, and that's a good thing.
Yeah, 100%. I would say, for me, it's less about movies and TV, more about personal growth. I feel like through my channel, which I started in June of 2019, coming up on 5 years, I've just gotten more confident in life, like just confident speaking to people for the first time, confident in my relationship with friends and family, just through repetition of speaking and editing and seeing myself speak. And it's just like growing that comfortability on camera and with other people. That's definitely like translated to just my life outside of YouTube, just the ability to speak. And it wasn't like something I was like, oh, this is by starting this YouTube channel, I'm going to become a better speaker and communicator with people. It just happened naturally. And so even too, if I go back and look at some of my videos from like 2019, 2020, I can see like a shyness on camera, an awkwardness on camera, and like the growth. That's what I'd say is the biggest thing, is my comfortability.
Mm-hmm. I think just for me, I work well on my own. I'm self-motivated, and it's just healthier for me to be doing what I'm currently doing than kind of working in certain other contexts. So just healthier, like less stress. I can be more present for my family. Just a lot of things like that are just much, much better. Hello, Sean. This is the Daniel Skinner that sent the Camp Blood shirt that we've shown many times. Hopefully I'll have enough will to watch Percy Jackson this weekend. Thank you for displaying the cool Camp Half-Blood shirt. There is a bit of a time frame on how long before I get to get it watched, because I'm heading to Megacon 1 week from today, in case you're joining in late. I don't have an answer on this one. Worst movie of all time. I don't think in those terms. And most movies that people would pick for worst movie ever, there's just these garbage movies that are incompetently made that are the worst movie ever. Worst movie and least favorite are not the same thing. So my least favorite is Alien 3, which it is not an incompetently made film, but it so infuriates me with the audience betrayal that happens in the basic setup of the film. It's a David Fincher film. He's a fantastic director, but the people that were in charge of the story went in a bad direction. Do you have a worst or least favorite?
Least favorite movie I've ever seen is 2016 Suicide Squad. For the basic fact that I loved the marketing, the premise, everything. I was over the moon excited, and I thought it was a dumpster fire. And I was with two of my friends that were super pumped for it. And it was the same thing where it's like they sold us and they had us with the marketing, and then we go watch it, and it's like this glorified music video with horrible joke. I didn't like to talk about the movie. It gets me fired up. So,
do you like AC/DC?
I do, quite a bit. It's hard not to.
Which singer do you prefer?
I kind of like Bon Scott earlier a little bit, but he does TNT, right?
No,
I believe he doesn't. Okay, then I'm mistaken.
How dare you, sir? So yeah, he has more of a. Brian Johnson has like the more classic, that sort of stuff, whereas Bon Scott had more like this swagger to his voice.
Well, yeah, I like them both.
But yeah, I grew up on AC/DC. They were huge all throughout my formative years, and now they're just so iconic, showing up in movies. And but it's rare that you can have a band that was as popular as AC/DC was, have the singer die, and then come back with an even more popular album with Back in Black, and then their 80s run. So classic stuff. All right, Disney nerd. Have you guys seen Has Been Hotel? It's an animated show made by A24. I started it yesterday. I was hooked pretty quick. Can you can watch it with kids. It has catchy songs and tons of swearing. Okay.
I've never heard of this. Have you?
I have no idea what you're talking about. I haven't.
Has Been Hotel.
Hotel. I don't know. Hotel. Amazon Prime. Yeah, you are the first person I have heard that has mentioned this one. I guess it just came out this month. So A24 joining in the fun of animation. I don't know anything about it, so I really can't comment too much on it. Alrighty. Do you have a cutoff for when you need to leave? I would guess we'd aim for right around the if you can go stay with me another 30 minutes. That'd be 2 hours.
4 probably would be good. Well, so 30 minutes. Yeah.
Okay.
I'm going to see Bob Marley tonight. I'm excited. The One Love.
Interesting. Is that a press screening or is it
press
just an
screening,
early fan one?
Press screening. Yep.
I haven't heard anything about one where I'm at. I'm seeing Fighter, a new Bollywood Top Gun. Hey, Sean, do you think the discussion surrounding the Oscar nominations became... I'm tripping over words. Hey, Sean, do you think the discussion surrounding the Oscar nomination... Hey, Sean, do you think the discussion surrounding the Oscar nominations became too toxic too quickly the past few days? Yeah, I think that this one very quickly shot off in a very weird direction. That I think there's some people that are well-intentioned, but took something to such an extreme level that there's a backside to what they're saying. And there's a couple of different weird ones going on. Of course, the most obvious one is the Greta Gerwig and Margot Robbie snub conversation surrounding Barbie, where people go, they're the heart and soul of this movie. How can a movie be nominated for Best Picture, but you don't nominate the director? She's the lead, but Ryan Gosling got directed and not her. Did people even watch the movie? And I hear all of that, and I go, those are strange arguments. There's 10 Best Picture nominees. There's only 5 Best Director. So immediately, half of them don't make it. And movies like Barbie don't normally get recognized by the Oscars because it's a comedy, because it's lighthearted. And it got 8 nominations. That's a win. America Ferrera got nominated as an actress in Barbie. That's a big win. And the movie wasn't saying, like, the movie had a lot to say about Ken being sidelined too, and that not being a good thing. And so the idea that, did you not watch the movie? How could he get nominated, not her? Well, that's not what the message of the movie was. But also, they're not running against each other. They're 2 different categories with different levels of competition of who you're up against. And we can't see like the like almost certainly Margot Robbie's number 6 on the nomination list. But it's not, when you vote to nominate people, you don't, it doesn't play out in this manner of like, you're sitting here looking at Ken and you're looking at Barbie and like, which one will I pick? It's not like that at all. And so it just feels like one of those ones where I get the frustration, but they're not seeing the big gains. Like, that it got nominated was big. Greta Gerwig was nominated as a screenwriter. Margot Robbie was nominated as a producer of the Best Picture. Like, those are big wins that it was nominated. It is being recognized. And you start minimizing things like Lily getting nominated for Best Actress when you're like, why are they doing this? They hate women. Like, there's big things that took place with representation, diversity that did happen that we're not talking about because we're talking about two people that did get Oscar nominations not getting more Oscar nominations. Like, there's a side to this that I understand what you're saying, but the conversation hasn't been Greta Gerwig was more deserving than this person. It's not that. It's all the grander implications. Or it's not, why on earth was Annette Bening nominated for Naiad? Which the answer is because they gave all of us water bottles. It's not that. It's talking about comparing her to Ken, who's in a different category. And you go, that's turning the Oscars into a culture war or something like that. Like, you're making a competitiveness, which is what the movie was against that. So I some of it was just weird. And not seeing the good that came out of it and talking about the snubs from a very strange angle. And then there was an article, I tried to pull it up before we started actually, on how that called Oppenheimer a dad movie, a macho dad movie. It's going viral. It's like the Independent or the Guardian or something like that out of Britain. The guy wrote a piece on like, this is a regressive pick that if this movie if Oppenheimer wins, this is setting us back with just these macho dad movies. Like, well, that's a take right there. Anyway, I went on a whole rant there. What's your thoughts on
so my thoughts on this are, when it comes down to it, like, I believe Greta Gerwig should have been nominated for director. I believe Margot should have been nominated for actress. But the thing, like, not even getting into like the implications of it all, I think that it's been spreading like wildfire, like this whole message of like, yeah, the anti-women thing. It's bizarre to me. I don't think that's the case here. I more so take issue with just the Academy in general, because they do this with a lot of films. Like, to me, I'm of the viewpoint that Margot and Greta were standouts in the lead actress category and directing. And so,
I think the direction is better than the script. My issues with the film are the script, not the direction. And of course, Margot was great, being both funny and dramatic. Mm-hmm. But the Academy doesn't recognize comedic performances as much,
which is a shame,
especially in lead performances.
Yeah, and so I guess the issue I take is like, they do this with not just Barbie, but movies every year, where they'll nominate it for the screenplay and for Best Picture and for some performances and a bunch of different things. It's nominated for 8 Oscars, but then they'll just be like, we're not going to nominate the person who directed it. It's always just been weird to me in general when a movie gets multiple nominations, and then there's like, we're not nominating the director, the person who kind of put this whole thing together. So that's where I was kind of rubbed the wrong way by it, because I do think Greta was one of the best 5 that should be on there, but I also don't want to take anything away from people who did get nominated too. Like, I'm not of that viewpoint where I'm like, oh, Ryan Gosling getting nominated, stupid. America Ferrera, stupid. It just doesn't make sense to me. But also, this happens every year with snubs, so I'm kind of calm about it. Like, I'm not up in arms online or anything. I'm just like, it's weird to me personally that it got 8 Oscar noms, and they were like, yeah, but not for directing or the lead actress, which were like the to me, like you had said, the heart and soul. So,
wait, and you think the director, that's the umbrella person that's over all of this stuff. So if you say it's one of the best and it's worthy of all these other things, but not director, that's where there's a mismatch. Like, that's the thing that's the argument where I go, that's the thing to be mad about. Mm-hmm. But suggesting that, I don't know, like when your argument is always like, did you even watch the movie? Did the Academy even watch the movie? Like, we're going off in weird directions. Like, that's bringing in this combativeness into some of it, or like, Ryan Gosling shouldn't have been nominated. Like, how does that make your point? Like, how does I don't. Yeah, no. Those are
for the record, I didn't even love Barbie. I have my issues with it, but it's just like, I'm speaking solely on the Academy's like terms for how they do business. Essentially, it just doesn't really add up to me, I guess. But that's nothing new. They do stuff like this every single year where I scratch my head. I'm like, what? This is nominated for 10 things and it's not nominated for this. It just doesn't make sense to me. Like in 2018, I believe they snubbed Bradley Cooper of a director's nomination for A Star is Born. Same kind of thing.
Yeah.
Where it's like, yeah, this movie's nominated for like 20 things, but not the director. It just doesn't make sense.
Yeah. Next question on here. What's your pick for best comedy of last year?
I'm trying to think. I No Hard Feelings stands out. That was one of the few comedy films I saw. I enjoyed that one, like a rom-com film. So I'll go with that. But I guess Dungeons and Dragons had its comedic elements too.
That's what makes it tough. Like, what qualifies as a comedy? Is Barbie a comedy? And then every Marvel movie's funny, or those comedies. That makes it tough. And then there's not as many straight comedies as there used to be. They all have I don't know. It's tough. We don't have as many of them. Yeah. So it's a genre that I think is hurting. So I don't have an answer I really like, because even like, was it Dear Margaret? That's kind of a dramedy. It's based off Judy Blume. It was real good. But it's a dramedy. And then The Holdovers, is that a dramedy?
I was going to
say
that's got its comedic elements.
Those are ones that are kind of tricky to some of those categories for me to. I don't know. I wish they'd get back to more straight comedies, but like in an era where we're figuring out sensitivity, and comedy's all about pushing boundaries. Inherently, it's tough. You're setting yourself up for failure. If you watch any R-rated comedy from over 15 years ago, you're like, oh, you can't say that anymore.
And even less so that, to me, the creatives behind all the comedies from the 2000s and even the early 2010s have like moved on into, Bill Hader, Seth Rogen, Jason Bateman with Ozark, Jason Sudeikis with Ted Lasso. Like, they've moved into other projects. Like, they've almost graduated.
Todd Phillips is now doing the Joker movies. Adam McKay, we talked about him earlier with Foo Fighters, My Hero. All of his movies are now like deeply political films, but they haven't, with films, raised up that next generation over this last decade. Like, it just hasn't, like, comedy as a genre is in a very odd place when it comes to film, that they're not quite sure what to do with it. What is your favorite DreamWorks movie? So I have a ranking of the DreamWorks movies. These aren't ones I grew up with. The studio started when I was in high school. So a lot of the iconic classic ones I watched pretty later in life. I have a ranking of them from just a few years back. So it's only missing the movies from the last few years. But I think it was one of the How to Train Your Dragon movies was on the top of my list. And then Puss in Boots from a year ago. That one was great. I don't know that that's on top, but one of the How to Train Your Dragon, that last Puss in Boots are some of the ones that immediately come to mind. But I have a ranking.
I lean Shrek 2 probably is my favorite of the DreamWorks bunch. One of the great sequels of our time. One of my buddies is like, I think it's the greatest movie sequel ever. So we always talk about sequels. He always brings up Shrek 2.
Yeah, see, I saw Shrek 2 for the first time just like 4 years ago. It plays a little differently when you watch it in your late 30s for the first time. Dear Skinner, if you trusted me to direct the two of you in a Bill Paxton film, this is going down a weird path, where Sean plays Bill's character, which of these options would you choose? Daniel, you are in a weird mood today, buddy. Predator 2, Apollo 13, and the masterpiece that's Near Dark. Well, Chris, I'll pass this one over to you.
Oh man, I don't even really understand the question, to be honest with you.
Predator 2 it is. Predator 2 is the answer. Thank you, Daniel Skinner, for the Camp Half-Blood shirt. Predator 2 is the one that I'm going to trust you with. Nick Baker, this is an interesting one. Hey, Sean, have you seen the 1998 action movie U.S. Marshals? It's essentially a follow-up to The Fugitive with Harrison Ford along with Robert Downey Jr., Wesley Snipes. Pretty good, thrilling, and a good twist. Do you know what this movie is?
I've surprisingly seen this one, Sean. Okay. I've seen this movie.
Yeah, I saw it opening weekend when it came out. The Fugitive, gigantic hit film when it first came out. I loved it. Owned it, watched it on loop. Tommy Lee Jones wins the Oscar, becomes this A-lister afterwards that he's that's been his career, really exploded with The Fugitive. That's where that happened. And then he gets Men in Black shortly afterwards and just takes off. And so then they do a spinoff. Well, you can't have Harrison Ford's character, so they do spin off the other character. They do U.S. Marshals. So I was there opening weekend when it came out. So I've seen it many times. I rewatched it a couple years back. And I mean, it's not The Fugitive, but like Cody said, it's a good thriller. Like if you liked The Fugitive and you're not expecting another all-timer like The Fugitive, it's a good follow-up.
No, yeah, I enjoyed it. It's another one of those movies I watched on Encore with my dad growing up, and it's got like it's a younger RDJ. It's one of probably the only pre-Iron Man RDJ role I've actually seen now that I think about it. So yeah,
you didn't watch Ally McBeal?
What even? I haven't even heard of that.
Ally McBeal? So
I actually have
a TV show.
Okay.
So Ally McBeal is a TV show starring what blanking on her name, Calista Flockhart. That's Harrison Ford's wife now, or has been his wife for 20 years or over 20 years now. So it's just like a courtroom TV show from 20 years ago. And Robert Downey Jr. was this movie star, Oscar nominated for Chaplin, and then the drug problem started happening. And so then he stopped getting movie offers. So all he could get was like fourth billing on season 3 of Ally McBeal. And this is over 20 years ago when movie stars didn't go to television. Television now is prestige. There's not the gap that there was before, but 20 years ago, you did not go from being a movie star to network television. He went from Oscar nomination movie star to fourth billed on Ally McBeal, a show that you've forgotten about, and then he was fired from it. And so that was like Robert Downey Jr., he was supposed to be the top guy. He was like this incredible talent. I mean, he was on the cast of Saturday Night Live in the 80s. He starred in movies, Oscar nominated, and then shipwrecked his career with drugs, as we're well aware of. But like Ally McBeal was like the thing where everyone went, oh crap, I guess Robert Downey Jr. is done. He got fired from television. And that's also why for some of us that remember this happening, if he wins this Oscar, it's the completion of the redemptive arc of back to movie star and then finally wins the Oscar 30 years later. But yeah, anyway, yes, he was on a TV show called Ally McBeal with Calista Flockhart, Harrison Ford's wife, and he got fired from it.
We learn something new every day. I didn't know that.
Oh yeah, that was like the one for a lot of people of like, I mean, it was just such a, he got fired? What? Robert Downey Jr. got fired from network television? What is happening? What's something you enjoy from pop culture that was most influenced by a loved one? Basically, everything I enjoy comes from my dad, who passed in 2017. I'm sorry to hear about that. I don't know. It's tough to say. Like my journey, it's kind of odd because my mom, in a lot of ways, she's not into nerd culture any way that like my sister and I are. But the reason my sister and I are into nerd culture is because my mother kind of fostered that. She started taking us to Star Trek conventions. That's like Comic Cons were around, but we didn't go to Comic Cons. We went to Star Trek conventions. Same exact thing, just Star Trek. And then we'd go to like toy collector conventions and stuff and buy old toys. And my mom, when we bought toys, we would buy 2 of everything. One you opened and one you kept, because toys from her childhood had become collector's items by the early 90s. And so she was trying to do that for us. So in my garage, I have a bunch of 30-year-old toys that have not gone up in value. But that kind of shaped my sister and I into kind of being into nerd culture and stuff as to do what I do now.
At a young age, I would say, I mean, my parents liked Star Wars. They showed me them on VHS and everything, and that's like become one of my favorite trilogy of all times, the original trilogy. But this is like a lot different in terms of when I was growing up, my dad would watch Seinfeld all the time, and so I just would be like in the room and be like, oh, I'm gonna watch Seinfeld with him. And so I love that show to this day. I reference it with my buddies, and we still watch some of the classic episodes because my dad loved Seinfeld and some of those sitcoms, and even shows like that. You might have heard of. Have you ever heard of the show Hogan's Heroes? Mm-hmm. That's one that's from way back in the day. Mm-hmm. My dad watched that. So growing up, I watched that all the time. So those older sort of network shows, and then also a handful of Steve McQueen movies. The Magnificent
Okay.
Seven, The Great Escape was one I loved when I was like 9. And Bullet, of course, which I'm excited for the Spielberg Bradley Cooper Bullet whenever that comes out.
That's a thing?
It is a thing. Yeah.
Oh, I didn't know that. That could be very cool.
It could be amazing, and people are like, maybe that'll be the one that Cooper wins the Oscar for. So we'll see.
When he stops trying too hard.
Yeah.
We've got about 15 minutes left on here, so we're going to move pretty quickly on some of these questions. Have your kids watched Transformers Prime, best Transformers animated show of the last decade? My kids haven't really gotten too much into Transformers, unfortunately. So, I don't have like a strong pick on that one. They haven't watched any of the shows. We watched the movies with them, and so then they kind of like some of those ones, but they're never been super big Transformers people. Do you have a quick pick on who's your favorite Game of Thrones characters? Have you watched Game of Thrones?
The Hound. I got him right here on Funko Pop. The Hound's my favorite.
I have no idea because it felt like everyone I loved by the end of the show, they'd done something terrible with them.
No, yeah.
So they made it like, I was going to do a character ranking, but it's like, what do you do when it's like 6 seasons? It's real easy. Like, you're awesome. And then the last 2 seasons, they ruined everybody or they did something wacky with everybody. It's tough to do a ranking when there's something you love and then you hate where they ended it. And it undoes it. So that's why I never did a ranking, but, I don't know.
Final season really soured a lot. I mean, including me. I mean, just like talk about a fall from grace. I've never seen it like that in a show in my life.
Right. And say like some of the stuff with Jon Snow and Daenerys was like really interesting, and then by the end of the show, you're like, what do I do with this? Whom would you have to direct Secret Wars? There's a lot that kind of goes into that. I don't feel like the MCU has like raised up that next generation of the obvious pick for who it would be. Who like the Russos? It was a journey of this one that was a mini team up with Winter Soldier, big team up. We're gonna trust you with the biggest team up, and there hasn't been anything like that. And that's part of what makes it kind of confusing. So like almost my answer is like, all right, everything the Russos have done outside of the MCU has sucked. Maybe bring them back. That's a boring choice, but it's like they worked well in the system. But I don't know, like, of the people that are currently in-house, there's not someone that has taken that next step. Or like I like what Ryan Coogler's done, but doing Black Panther movies is not the same thing as doing Avengers movies. They're just different beasts entirely. So I don't have an interesting pick.
Nor do I. I guess if I had to pick someone, maybe John Watts, maybe, but even then that feels like a little so it's hard to say. I kind of agree, like the Russo brothers coming back seems like a choice, because weren't they going to do is Destin Daniel Cretton like off the project? He's done with it, right? Is that the guy who did Shang-Chi?
Yeah, so he was Kang Dynasty.
Okay, yeah.
And so he's still like even the way it was announced, it seemed like it's possible that it's not even that he's out of the running, but he's not doing Kang Dynasty. Okay. But there's reason to believe maybe they're not doing Kang Dynasty.
Yeah.
So maybe there's some version, but like it was phrased in a way that he's working on his Shang-Chi projects. But I really enjoyed that movie. But going from that to gigantic Avengers film, there's a middle step is kind of important, especially with the size of Avengers movies now. But I don't even we don't know who the Avengers are, so we don't even know how big it is.
We have no clue.
But like with Secret Wars, inherently they're gigantic. Who is qualified to do that besides the Russos?
Nobody.
Favorite Clint Eastwood movies? So I always liked A Fistful of Dollars, going back to seeing the clips at the end of Back to the Future 2. I was like, what is this movie with Biff is watching and then plays out in Back to the Future 3? And I went, oh, it's a Clint Eastwood movie? And so I became obsessed with it kind of at some point in time in the 90s. So that's the one that always kind of stuck out to me in a lot of ways. As for directed films, I don't know which one I would go with immediately as directed films.
When it comes to the ones he starred in, this is a real throwback. It's called Where Eagles Dare. And it's another one of those movies that my dad showed me growing up, a classic sort of war film. That's one that I like a lot. Directing wise, I don't really know, to be honest with you. Like maybe $1 Million Baby, but I don't ever rewatch that movie. So, yeah.
Yeah, that's especially since he does a lot of like dramas. They're not ones that have that like go back to them all the time. Richard, hey Richard, what's up, Sean? Do you have a movie or TV show you especially look forward to this year? I actually kind of know, compared to some previous years. Like, there were multiple years in a row I was like, I can't wait to see Top Gun Maverick. There's not an equivalent to that this year. Like, I'm really excited about Deadpool 3. I'm really excited about Planet of the Apes. But there's always a little bit of like, but I don't know. Like, there are movies that I'm hopeful that, like, the best version of it could be great and awesome. But I can also imagine a very disappointing version of it. And so there's always a little bit of fear with the ones that this year in particular. One that's kind of outside the box, The Hitman from Richard Linklater and Glenn Powell. So Glenn Powell on the rise. He's actually a close personal friend of mine, though we've never actually met. If you don't know what that means, he went to the same high school as me. And so I know some people that knew him, but I'm several years older than him, so we were not there at the same time. But it's gotten fantastic festival buzz, so that's the one that kind of comes to mind.
When it comes to movies for me, I mean, I've got all the basic picks. Obviously, I'm pumped for Deadpool 3, but TV show-wise, if this series that I'm about to say ends up coming out this year, which they're saying it could, then it's by far my favorite, and it's one that was mentioned earlier, Cobra Kai. They're saying that on Twitter they're trying to get it out this year, and I believe they can, even if that's December. That's like the final season of Cobra Kai, tie a bow on the series, Sekai Taikai, whatever's going down, that's going to be my pick, Cobra Kai.
Okay. Hey, Sean, do you have any tips on life in your early 20s? Seems like you've succeeded, beautiful family, dream job, etc. But to get here, it led to very dark phases in my early 30s and a lot of journeys. Like in my early 20s, I mean, if you'd think my early 20s was before YouTube existed. So as a point of reference, this was not on my radar, but I've always enjoyed creating things. I created my first movie website in high school in the 90s. So it's kind of always been out there. Tips for life. Don't dig holes that are going to be difficult to get out of. Like going into debt foolishly creates a scenario that makes it very difficult to do things you're passionate about or get a house or later on. So I've never been a big spender. Even right now, things are going well. I don't have a car really right now because I don't go enough places. We just kind of use one car. I could buy a car, but I don't. And because I don't have a car, it makes it very easy for me to have the freedom and finances to travel and do lots of interesting things and do things like Megacon and not even think about it. But some of that's because I didn't create big holes, like financial holes or whatever other holes you can create for yourself. Like try and avoid big issues, big problems that sets yourself up for failure. And if you can be ahead of the curve, I didn't do this well enough. Start saving for retirement in your early 20s, even if small amounts, because of compound interest. Small deposits in your early 20s are worth so much money when you're 60 years old. So if you could just start a little Roth IRA, a little retirement account, just put in $100 a month. You will thank yourself when you're 30. You'll thank yourself when you're 40. You'll really thank yourself when you're 60. But take good, reasonable risks. I've had several of my friends, Griffin, who's been out in LA for like over 5 years now. Before he moved out there, him and I talked on the phone for over an hour. Like, he was asking for advice of what he should do. Should he move out to LA? Should he take the risk? And I was like, ask some questions like, do you have a safety net? If things went bad, some questions about it. But like, if I could have done that, moved out to LA in my early 20s, even if you're out there for a year and you fail miserably, you will have so many memories and experiences that you will be with you for the rest of your life. I can't do that now. I have a house, I got a wife, kids. I don't want to live in LA visiting. I can go about 5 days and it's the best 5 days ever. Day 6, I'm like, I want to get out of here. The roads are too crazy.
Yeah.
If I was in my early 20s, you can do some of those things. And so don't dig holes living crazy in your 20s. You don't need to have a fancy car, you got the rest of your life ahead of you. But try things that don't dig holes for yourself. Don't, I don't know if that's useful advice, but the earlier you make deposits in things that you want in life, the more the compound interest grows. Of course, financially, that's the obvious ones, but like in my case, I spent 20 years failing at launching things, blogs, web pages, talking about movies on the internet, researching movie stuff, and it went nowhere until it did. And that really matters to me. Like, it's not obvious. Like, when I say I started my YouTube channel in 2016 and went full-time 2.5 years later, that's not a true story because I was building off 20 years of failures. But all of that mattered when I got later in life. So invest in yourself, in experiences, opportunities, doing things that really matter. So,
as someone in their early 20s, that was very good advice. Like, I appreciate hearing that. That was nice.
Yeah, so trying to riff, like, what I like, if I could tell myself something when I was younger, what would I have done? Like, start a movie webpage, get on YouTube sooner. But they're not, it wouldn't be terribly far detached from what I actually was doing. And even the stuff that went nowhere, doing music, I was in bands and it went nowhere. And I look back and I go, it shouldn't have. Like, I wasn't as good at that as I am at what I do now. But there are memories that are with me. I did some cool stuff. I'm glad that I did it. I don't know. Don't let a year go by where you don't do anything worth remembering. And it's something that's just like, that's like one of the reasons I'm good at the YouTube thing is I just have this feeling of every day at the end of the day, I want to feel like something new exists because of what I did that day. So I wrote all these songs in my 20s that no one has ever heard, but they still exist in the universe. Mm. That matters to me. And there's all these things that I created or put out there, or made investments in people that they matter to me, at least. So,
yeah. No, I love that. I guess in my early 20s, and I can't speak for everyone else in the stream right now in their early 20s, but it's easy to feel like you're running out of time. And it's like trying to grapple with that is difficult sometimes. I'm 24 years old and I'm like, oh, I need to be doing this and this and this and this. But it's like, we have time. It's just hard to realize that. Big picture thinking is hard sometimes.
And that's a big, like, you really do. Like, I started Sean Chandler Talks About when I was 34 years old. And, like, I think about my own immaturity. Like, probably not surprising, I'm not the most mature person for my age, and I never have been. Probably not shocking information. But there's all sorts of ways that my ego immaturity, my character flaws, issues with addiction, things like that if I'd had success before having the failures that I'd had, it could have destroyed me. It could have, like, you look at some of these people that are these 22-year-old influencers with 10 million subscribers, and they're monsters. They're horrible people.
Yeah.
And you go, fame ruined them. And for me, having success after so much time of not having success, it's much easier to process all of it. It's so much easier to appreciate it, to remember what life was like before, remember what it was like to be in the comment section, and just really appreciate all that I have, and be grateful, thankful. And likewise, there's a lot of ups and downs in YouTube that are stressful. But it's also easy for me to go, like, if this whole thing collapses next month, and YouTube's over, if I get canceled, if the ecosystem collapses and I have to get a normal job, I had the coolest job ever for 5 years. And I can be grateful for that. Like, if it all ends, most people don't get to watch movies for a living and go to premieres and do all this cool stuff. And that I'm still in the same community I was at before. I go to the same church I went to before. And I'm the same guy. And it's like, I think some of that is because I had success late enough that it would have jacked me up if it had been earlier. So I don't know. Building off what you just said, you don't have to rush. Anyway, we're still an hour behind on questions, and we're at the point in time when we said we were going to end. Have you seen The Last Samurai with Tom Cruise? Yeah, I think it's a great. It's the same story template as Avatar, Ferngully, Pocahontas, Dances with Wolves, The Broken Soldier, Goes Primitive. It's my favorite of that. I really love that movie. Have you seen it?
I haven't seen it, but I've heard.
Have you seen Avatar?
I've seen Avatar.
It's the same thing, just with Tom Cruise.
Yeah, that's what I've heard in that trope. So I'm like, I don't know if I want to watch it, but you saying it's one of the better of those, that excites me to potentially.
Yeah, it's my favorite out of all of them. Okay. Jack, hey Sean, what are your thoughts on the Last of Us TV show? Have you ever played the game? So I posted some reviews of covering the show as it aired, so I don't want to go too much into detail on it, but I thought it was really well done, really well written, very emotional, but then could be thrilling, edge of your seat. I've played a good bit of the first game, and I own both games, but it's just I don't have time. So I was trying to play along to the game while I was watching the show. I just didn't have time to finish it by the time the season was done. So I made it pretty deep into the game, but I didn't finish it in time. So it was like, all right, well, I guess I got a couple more years to try to play through both of these games. But I thought the show was pretty fantastic.
Yeah, I played both games before the show intentionally. Like, I set aside my weekends. I grinded it out late nights doing it, and I played both of them. And the show is a fantastic adaptation because it tweaks little things to actually improve the overall story and add depth to certain characters. And I appreciate it for that. So I'm ready for season 2. Curious to see how it's received. That's all I'll say.
What are your thoughts on Rachel Ziggler and the new Snow White remake? Over on my second channel, I've done some videos talking about that and the infamous quotes and all of that. So you can just look up Sean Chandler, Rachel Ziggler, Sean Chandler, Snow White, something pops up. Chris, can you say something real super controversial if you want to just poke the bear, get people mad at us related to this? The more misogynistic, the better. High five.
Oh man, I'll say this. All jokes aside, I actually I like Rachel Ziegler a lot as an actress, and
she's very talented,
and
especially when she had several months of bad press because of those quotes, and then you watch the new Hunger Games and you go, she's really talented. Yeah, she's really good.
Yeah, she is. So I hope it's one of the better live action remakes. I actually liked the Little Mermaid live action remake. I think it's one of the better ones where it took the original and improved the story, the relationship between Ariel and Eric. So I'm never gonna I'm just gonna have to wait and see the movie before judging it beforehand.
This isn't misogynistic. I wanted something controversial. I was trying to get both of us canceled. Yeah, I think her comments were weird. The choices, they seem odd for that one, but we'll see. We'll see what comes of it. Do you guys find it sad that DCU started with the birth of Superman and ended with Patrick Wilson eating a vegan cheeseburger in Santa Monica? Yeah, I mean, because it wasn't meant to be the end. So, I mean, the way that they ended the DCEU, I think, is pretty insulting to people that actually did like the DCEU. I really enjoyed the DCEU. There's a handful of disastrous projects, a couple of very disappointing ones, but then I enjoy the rest of them. I enjoy almost all of them. And that they just kind of pulled the plug the way they did is kind of insulting to people kind of in my situation.
I just, when I saw that movie in theaters, I was just like, it's kind of poetic that it went out with a bit of a whimper, the whole thing. To me, most of it was. So it was wild, and it's done, and hopefully the DCU is better. That's all we can hope for.
Yeah, my impression was the DCEU, the problem was they just never had a cohesive plan for it that they could stick to. Hopefully they can fix that. Not to brag, but I went to a Dune, the first one, screening yesterday. Denis Villeneuve was there presenting it as a surprise in Montreal, Canada. I'd seen some stuff about that on the internet that he showed up. Some people posted pictures. So very cool that you were there for that. That's
neat.
That would be a very pleasant surprise. All right, now we are now only 38 minutes behind on questions.
Well, have you ever been to an early screening and a celebrity presents the movie before, or someone from the movie comes out?
Of course, at film festivals, yes. Yeah. There have been a couple in Austin, but I actually missed them. There was the Franco Alison Bry
Oh
movie.
yeah. I think
that they showed up at the Austin press screening. I just didn't go to it.
Oh, okay.
So it was like I could have been at one, but I missed it. But I don't think I've had one where it's like, hey, surprise, I'm in the room. I don't think I've had one of those. Movies that shouldn't be remade or wouldn't work as well: Back to the Future and Home Alone. Well, so we got a Home Alone remake a couple years back of sorts. And it did not work. That movie is just timeless. Kids absolutely adore it to this day. We watch it every day with my kids, and all of them love it. Karis, 5-year-old, loves it. So it's incredibly timeless film. I utterly disagree about Back to the Future. I've said it many times before, openly stated it, pitched it, and of course people get mad at me every time I say this, but there's a side to it that I understand the pushback, because they made a perfect film and a great trilogy that you don't want to break that. The problem where I disagree, though, is that the central premise is exactly the sort of thing that should be remade. It's a transferable premise that is interesting, different, and fresh every new generation. A 1985 high schooler going back to 1955 is not remotely the same thing as a 2025 teenager going back to 1995. That, like, those are funny and different in totally different ways. And even like you can the Ronald Reagan jokes, Donald Trump jokes, like it's like you think, but like the shifts in culture from modern day version of political correctness, understanding of cultural sensitivity, and obsession with or reliance on technology in your pocket, going back to dial-up internet in 1995, and the insensitivity. It's funny and interesting in a new way. And the movie Totally Killer last year, I think, made my point. Maybe that's the concession, that Totally Killer, the slasher version of Back to the Future, is what we get, rather than doing Back to the Future, which would make many of you mad. But it kind of proves my point that it's a transferable idea. But I think Back to the Future is very much a film. Like, you don't do Marty and Doc. Like, you don't try to do beat for beat. You take the central concept, which is modern day high schooler meets their parent in high school. That is interesting and transferable. And those are the ideas that make sense to be remade. That concept. Yeah. It's not Marty in 1985 going to 55. It's 2025, 1995.
I think I'm cool with the premise, but I would be like, if they did some like fourth film or something where they got anyone from the original back, that's where I'd be like, I don't need that. But I am okay with them taking the premise and... But at that point, I'm like, just make an original movie without the Back to the Future name. Like, I'd be cool with that, and I guess that's what Totally Killer kind of is. I haven't watched that one, but no, I'm okay with the premise, but not Back to the Future.
You watch Totally Killer? Because you don't like horror movies.
Well,
right?
I'm all right on them. You know, I'm all right on them. But if it's similar to Scream, then I'm cool.
It's in that ballpark. Okay. So it's in that the category of doing a X movie as a slasher, and so it's a comedy that's a slasher where she's trying to find a killer. She goes back in time and she's trying to find this killer from 30 years in the past and meets her parents, and so it's like this very politically correct modern high schooler goes back to the 80s, and everyone is incredibly cruel. The coaches are like, all right, pick whoever doesn't get picked first is a loser. Like, just says like all the stereotypes of what gym class was like back in the day. Yeah. And then it's a slasher, so maybe it would be one that you would enjoy. I had a lot of fun with it. I thought it was making
on the
fun
Halloween
of everyone.
watch list this year for me.
So I like, some people were like, because it's the internet, of course, they said that some people were like, it's too woke. I felt it was making fun of everyone. Like it was making fun of, like, making her seem ridiculous. It was making fun of the 80s and like, how did we function like this? And so it was like yeah, let's all be more reasonable. Both of these extremes are the problem. I'm excited to watch Fighter as well. It has a stacked A-list cast, and as any Pilot Aerospace movie, I'm going to watch it. Fighter is a new Bollywood action jet fighter movie, Bollywood Top Gun. I am seeing it tonight, and I believe I'll be reviewing it tomorrow.
There you have it.
We're only 34 minutes behind. Who are the best working actors today?
I mean, Margot Robbie's in the conversation. I'd say
couldn't even get nominated for Best Actress.
Yeah, what am I?
Neither could Leo. They're garbage.
Bums, right? Leo, funnily enough. I would say Bradley Cooper's in the conversation. Will he ever win an Oscar? Who knows? But he's in the conversation.
Actually transformative. Like, you watch him in Maestro and he's a different person. He can be the guy in The Hangover. He can be action movie guy. He can be stoic. Like
Rocket Raccoon, even.
Right. You don't think that's Bradley Cooper, but it is, and it so versatile.
Absolutely.
Important message for you: Ally McBeal is on Disney Plus. So
go. I know what I'm watching.
Yeah, give that one a watch and see Robert Downey Jr. get fired from a TV show.
I'm looking it up right now.
Say favorite actor, best ones working today. I'm trying to think who's an interesting pick to throw out there. I don't know if I have anyone that's coming to mind since we're 2 hours into this deal. Desert Island pick, Warrior or Iron Claw. So it's Iron Claw's a little bit too soon for me to be in that category. Warrior is one that has stuck with me a decade. Iron Claw, I watched it a month ago, so 12, 13 years with Warrior versus 1 month with a movie. Time is important to me. As I get older, as a year passes, do I still remember it? Do I still get those big emotions from it? Do I keep going back to it? That's how Warrior became my go-to movie to recommend to people. Iron Claw hasn't had enough time to earn its way into that category.
Warrior slightly less emotionally draining and taxing than Iron Claw, so I'd go Warrior. More rewatchable. And that's if it's on a desert island, you got to watch it multiple times. You're stuck with it.
That's a good
Warrior.
And that last hour of that movie is very rewatchable. So I think there's some, that's probably the safer answer to say on that. Jon Favreau should direct Secret Wars. Jon Favreau, if you need someone that's probably a pretty reliable choice to get the job done, it's him. He's been doing this a long time in a lot of different categories, so maybe there's some logic to that. He was the front runner to do the first Avengers until that imploded. So,
yeah, he's so far in the world of Star Wars now. I feel like they won't get him back from Marvel anytime soon. Right,
like it doesn't seem like it's one that's on the table.
No.
He was on my short list whenever they announced Episode 7, but I don't think it's particularly likely now. With Dead Reckoning underperforming and Tom Cruise's new deal with Warner Brothers, do you think Mission Impossible 8 will be the final film? I think that was what my understanding of what it was announced to be when they first announced it 4 or 5 years ago. And it that was the whole point, is we're going to do 2 movies back to back to do the big finale. And then leading up to the release of Dead Reckoning, they started saying things like, well, we've got spin-offs and we're going to keep doing it. And they said stuff like that, but they announced the movie as we're ending it.
Mm-hmm. My understanding was that this would be the end, but then I do remember seeing some reports being like, there might be movies after, though. And so I'm not sure. And then you've got the whole renaming of the movie going on right now. I think Mission Impossible 8 will mark the end of the series for now. We could come back to it, but I think there's going to be at least a 5-year gap until the next thing.
Hey, Sean, do you plan on using Letterboxd? I have a Letterboxd account. I posted 2 reviews on it yesterday. I posted a review of Mean Girls that was actually a lot more elaborate and longer than my out of the theater reaction. And I posted one for One More Shot, the direct-to-video action film from Scott Adkins. Later today, I'll probably post one. Well, I'll post one for Fighter, and I'll post one for Crisis on Infinite Earths Part 1. But I have Letterboxd, and I've been using it pretty regularly for a bit now. What's your username on Letterboxd?
It's @Filmstocked. Yeah, I use it a lot as well. So I'll have to follow you. I didn't know you had one.
How dare you? I don't really like it that much, or I traditionally haven't liked it that much, so I haven't used it. So I've been trying to get back into it over the last several months.
I love changing the posters. I paid for the yearly thing just so I can go change posters. It's fun to do late at night instead of scrolling on TikTok.
When are you gonna do Home Alone 3, 4, and 5? I have a ranking where I've talked about all those movies. I'm not sure what you're asking, but I've talked about the obscure ones.
I've only seen the first 3 Home Alones, and I probably will never watch the others just because I adore the first. So,
what do you think of the Roadhouse trailer? That is the first thing that we talked about in this live stream. So just rewind to the beginning, and you will find it. We're only 8 minutes behind, so we're behind, but we're not too terribly far behind our time. Well, 15 minutes, so maybe it's a little bit. I lied to you when I said we'd be at 2 hours. Have you ever played the Arkham games? Played the first 2 and loved them. Currently on Arkham Knight. Yeah, I mean, Arkham City is an all-time... Well, I mean, they're all great. Arkham City is an all-timer for me. Mm-hmm. Just a fantastic game. And so much so that you, like, immediately compare the Spider-Man games to it because it's like, you're just the Spider-Man version of what they did with Batman. But if you're going to copy someone, it's one of the best ones to copy. I didn't like Arkham Knight because all the Batmobile stuff I just thought was... I didn't like the Batmobile stuff.
I remember rage quitting multiple times when I was playing that because it was so difficult going through like the sewers with the Batmobile. I thought some of the levels are really hard, but yeah, the Arkham games are a blast. City's the best for sure of the 4.
Okay, 7 minutes. What are your thoughts on Mandalorian and Grogu movie making a lot of money? Will it bomb at the box office or will it be successful? I'm concerned about that one because the Marvel situation of you create a scenario where people have to do homework, and what feels like a lot of people watching something on a streaming service is not the same thing as the number of people that need to watch something to make $1 billion, $500 million. That's a lot of people watching something, and I don't know. Streaming numbers have always been a little bit weird. Mandalorian is on the decline. This isn't coming off of season 2. It's coming off season 3 where people are like, oh, that wasn't as good. I'm losing some. So I'm concerned. They need some really good trailers to win people over.
I think it's a mistake. It's alienating a large portion of the movie-going audience that doesn't have Disney Plus, and it's almost like Disney being like, oh, don't worry, The Mandalorian's a successful thing, so we can have faith in it, when I don't think it's going to perform as well as they think. I think it's a mistake, but especially coming off the heels of season 3, which was the worst by far of those 3.
Yeah, like I can see what they're trying to do, and if they do like a reasonable budget, maybe, but Disney doesn't know how to do reasonable budgets. Sean has a letterbox. No way. How did I not know this? Since I don't use it much, I don't promote it much, but it's probably one of the more frustrating questions I get in DMs because it's the, hey, when are you going to start a letterbox? Hey, have you heard of letterbox? Have you I've been on, like, I'm in the movie space, of course. I know what letterbox is. I've had an account for about 5 years. I'm not a gigantic fan of it. Have you seen Society of the Snow? That is one of the award contender films that I did not watch. I don't remember if I got it in my screeners and everything like that. But, it's one that I missed. I've heard good things about it. You're planning on watching the new Bollywood film Fighter. We've actually talked about that about 17 times in here. That's where I'm heading off to in 3 hours. I'm seeing it tonight. Should be my review tomorrow. Hey, I don't know if anyone's mentioned this thus far. We're going to be at Megacon a week from now. We're going to be at Megacon. We got 3 panels with me and you together. I've got, I have 2 more panels, kind of 3 more panels. We're doing meet and greets. We're there all 4 days. You can look down below at all the people that'll be joining us with some of the panels we'll be a part of. I am super duper excited to head on out there.
It's going to be a blast. I am pumped for that. Next week, people. Orlando,
Florida. We are 1 week away from all of the fun, exciting, which it's sneaking up every year. They moved it up 2 months this year, so it's like right around the corner that all of this is happening. But like, we got a panel talking about Stranger Things that you'll be the lead on. We got one that's talking about, has the comic book movie bubble burst? We got one talking about how to grow a nerdy YouTube channel or TikTok. The TikTok shorts part is the part where I have many questions for you. That's where your expertise will be, because you have taken off in the realm of shorts in a way that I have not. My old man brain doesn't quite get it, so I'm going to be picking your brain so I can figure out how to do all of that fun stuff to have more success there. But in addition, there's one where I'm going to do a hot takes one where some of us are going to be fighting over our movie hot takes. We got a horror panel with Cody Leach taking lead on all of that. So all that's coming up a week from now. Chris, where can we find you on the internet?
You could find me at Filmstocked across the board on TikTok, Instagram, Twitter, and YouTube, where I post movie reviews, Stranger Things theories, TV content, all that stuff. But yeah, Filmstocked across the board.
Thank you so much for joining me on here. This is always a lot of fun to have someone to bounce off of, in particular where there's just enough of there's a lot of overlap in what we like, but there's enough differences when we grew up. There's just different perspectives of on all of it, and even like what movies were like, well, of course everyone watched this, and then which one, just those little details and differences of always adds an extra flair and flavor to everything. Thank you so much for joining me. Everybody that's watching, head on over to his channel, subscribe, and if you are anywhere within the multiverse, you want to head on out to Florida, Orlando, Florida, 1 week from now for Megacon. All the details are down below in the description, and keep talking movies and TV too much. Bye-bye.